You're settling in for the night, perhaps with the faint glow of your phone casting shadows across your pillow, and here you are, ready to drift into the oddly specific world of medieval ale tasters. Fair warning, you probably won't make it through this day without falling asleep, and honestly, that's exactly what we're going for here. Before we begin, if this peculiar corner of history helps you unwind, a gentle like would mean the world, and subscribing keeps these sleepy stories coming your way. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight, so drop your location and local time in the comments. There's something wonderfully communal about knowing we're all scattered across time zones, united by the quest for decent sleep and decent stories. Now let's ease into tonight's journey, back to a time when your biggest career worry wasn't automation or LinkedIn updates, but whether the ale you're about to taste might actually kill you. The morning mist clings to the cobblestones as you step out of your cramped timber house, the kind with the walls so thin you know exactly when your neighbour's rooster decides it's time for everyone to wake up. It's 1347, somewhere in the English countryside. Let's say Coventry, because it sounds appropriately medieval and slightly damp. You pull your rough woolen cloak tighter, not because it's particularly cold, but because wool in the 14th century had all the softness of a kitchen scrub brush, and you've learned to live with it. Your name, for the purposes of our story, is something wonderfully ordinary, like Thomas or Agnes, and you hold one of the most important yet underappreciated jobs in your small town. You are an ale taster, not a sommelier, not a craft beer enthusiast with strong opinions about hops. You are literally the person who determines whether the local brew will nourish your community or send them to an early grave. No pressure. You make your way down the narrow street, stepping carefully around the inevitable collection of things medieval people left lying about. The air carries that distinctive medieval morning smell, wood smoke, wet earth, and something vaguely organic that you've stopped questioning. Your neighbours are already bustling about their morning routines, and you notice how their faces brighten slightly when they see you. After all, you're the one who stands between them and potentially lethal ale, which in a world without reliable water purification is essentially standing between them and death by dehydration. The concept of professional ale tasting emerged from the harsh reality that water in medieval towns was often more dangerous than alcohol. Rivers ran with industrial waste from mills and tanneries, wells could be contaminated by improper drainage from latrines, and boiling water for purification was time-consuming and fuel-expensive for most families. Ale, with its brewing process that involved boiling and fermentation, was genuinely safer to drink than water, a fact that would probably make modern health officials weep into their kombucha. Your first stop is the workshop of Margot the brewer, whose establishment sits at the corner where the main road splits toward the market square. Margot is one of those formidable medieval women who could probably run a small country if given half a chance, but instead channels her organisational genius into producing consistently drinkable ale. She greets you with the kind of nod that suggests mutual professional respect mixed with the understanding that you both deal with life or death matters on a daily basis, just with more casual attitudes about it than modern people might find comfortable. "Morning, Thomas," she says, wiping her hands on a leather apron that has seen better decades. "Fresh batch came off yesterday evening. Should be ready for your inspection." There's a slight tension in her voice, the kind that comes from knowing that your livelihood depends on someone else's professional opinion. Historians still debate whether ale tasters were appointed by local authorities or elected by community consensus, but what's certain is that their word could shut down a brewing operation faster than a health inspector discovering rodent droppings in a restaurant kitchen. You approach the large wooden casks with the solemnity the moment deserves. This isn't a casual beer tasting where you might comment on notes of caramel with a playful finish. This is a methodical evaluation of whether consuming this beverage will result in death, illness, or merely the kind of mild stomach upset that medieval people considered part of daily life. You dip your testing cup, a small wooden vessel that you guard more carefully than most people guard their smartphones, into the amber liquid and bring it to your lips. The first sip is always the most telling. Good ale should taste like bread and warmth, with a slight tang that suggests the fermentation process went according to plan. Bad ale tastes like regret with hints of, why didn't I become a baker instead? Today's batch passes the initial test, so you continue with the systematic evaluation that your position requires. You check for clarity, cloudy ale often meant contamination, and note the subtle variations in flavour that might indicate problems with the grain or the brewing process. As you continue your methodical evaluation of Margot's ale, you become aware of the small crowd that has begun to gather. Word travels fast in a medieval town, especially when it concerns the safety of the local beverage supply. Mrs. Aldrich from the bakery peers over your shoulder with the intensity of someone whose morning ale consumption is not a casual preference, but a survival necessity. Young Peter, the blacksmith's apprentice, hovers nearby with the kind of nervous energy that suggests he was planning to celebrate something with friends later and really needs this batch to pass inspection. You take another measured sip, holding the liquid in your mouth longer this time, letting it coat your tongue while you analyse its properties. The ale has that distinctive medieval sweetness that comes from malted barley, cut with herbs that Margot has carefully selected to aid digestion and preservation. There's a faint note of something that might be meadow sweet, a common additive that helped prevent spoilage and gave the ale a honey-like undertone that modern craft beer enthusiasts would probably describe as interesting terroir, while charging $30 for a 4-pack. The crowd watches with the kind of focused attention usually reserved for important announcements or public executions, both of which, in medieval times, were forms of community entertainment. You're acutely aware that your decision affects not just Margot's business, but the daily hydration needs of roughly 200 people who depend on this particular brewery for their liquid sustenance. No pressure, but if you approve a contaminated batch, the resulting mass illness could literally decimate the local population, and you'd probably find yourself explaining your professional methodology to an angry mob armed with pitchforks and justifiable grievances. After what feels like an appropriate amount of deliberative tasting, enough to be thorough, not so much that people start questioning your sobriety, you render your verdict. "Clean batch," you announce, and the collective sigh of relief is almost audible. Margot's shoulders drop slightly as tension leaves her body, and Mrs. Aldrich immediately begins calculating how much ale she'll need to get through the next week without having to resort to drinking water, which everyone agrees is best avoided except in dire emergencies. Your next stop takes you across the town square to the establishment run by Edmund the Alewife, which sounds like a contradiction but actually made perfect sense in medieval England. Despite the feminine title, alewives could be of any gender, and Edmund had inherited both the business and the slightly confusing job title from his late wife, who had been renowned for producing ale so consistently excellent that people came from neighbouring villages specifically to purchase her brew. Edmund, to his credit, had maintained her recipes with the kind of meticulous attention to detail that would impress modern quality control specialists. The walk across the square gives you a moment to appreciate the peculiar rhythm of medieval town life. The morning market is in full swing, with vendors hawking everything from fresh bread to dubiously aged cheese, while livestock wanders with the casual freedom of creatures who haven't yet been introduced to the concept of property boundaries. A group of children plays some version of what might generously be called soccer, using a ball that appears to have been constructed from rags and optimism. Their game weaves between the market stalls with the kind of chaotic energy that makes you grateful your job involves sitting still and drinking ale, rather than chasing energetic children around sharp objects and open fires. Edmund greets you with the nervous joviality of someone whose entire financial stability rests on your professional opinion. "Thomas, right on schedule as always. Fresh batch ready for your expert evaluation." He gestures toward a row of wooden casks that gleam with the kind of careful maintenance that suggests he takes his craft seriously. The workshop smells of grain and fermentation, with underlying notes of wood smoke and that indefinable scent of medieval industriousness. Part sweat, part determination, and part resignation to the fact that life is hard but ale makes it bearable. You begin your evaluation process again, noting that Edmund's ale has a slightly different character from Margot's. Where hers was straightforward and reliable, his shows more complexity, with subtle variations that suggest he's been experimenting with different grain combinations or fermentation timing. This is where your expertise becomes crucial. Distinguishing between intentional flavour variations and accidental contamination requires a palate trained through years of professional tasting and, unfortunately, occasional poisoning from batches that didn't quite meet safety standards. The medieval ale industry was surprisingly sophisticated. Despite operating without modern quality control measures or sanitation standards, brewers developed complex techniques for managing fermentation, created proprietary herb blends for flavour and preservation, and maintained detailed knowledge of seasonal variations in grain quality that would impress modern agricultural specialists. Yet they worked in an environment where a single contaminated batch could destroy a business overnight, making the role of ale tasters absolutely essential for community safety and economic stability. As you continue your evaluation, you notice a group of travelling merchants who have stopped to observe your work. They're probably hoping to purchase ale for their journey, but they're wise enough to wait for your professional approval before committing to a purchase. Bad ale on the road could mean anything from mild discomfort to serious illness far from medical help, assuming medieval medical help was actually helpful, which historians still debate with the kind of passionate disagreement usually reserved for sports teams or political candidates. Edmund's ale passes your inspection with the kind of solid reliability that makes you briefly consider whether you've chosen the right profession. After all, when was the last time your job evaluation went smoothly without at least one minor crisis or awkward conversation with management? You give Edmund the approving nod that means his family will eat regularly this week, and he responds with the kind of grateful smile that makes you remember why you chose a career path that occasionally involves risking your life for the greater good, even if the greater good is mostly people wanting to get mildly intoxicated on a Tuesday morning. Your next destination is the workshop of young William, who earned his nickname by being the youngest person to set up a brewing operation in living memory, and who has maintained the title despite now being roughly 45 years old and sporting the kind of grey-streaked beard that suggests he's seen some things. The medieval tradition of nicknames that no longer applied was remarkably persistent. You knew Old Margaret, who was barely 30, and Short Geoffrey, who had grown to impressive height but remained Short Geoffrey, because changing nicknames apparently required more bureaucratic effort than anyone was willing to invest. The walk to William's establishment takes you past the town's unofficial social centre, the area around the well where people gathered to collect water for household use and to exchange the kind of information that kept medieval communities informed about everything from crop prices to who was feuding with whom over property boundaries. Today's conversation seems to centre around rumours of a travelling performer who might arrive for the Harvest Festival, which generates the kind of excitement ceremony usually reserved for major religious holidays, or news that the plague might be taking a detour around your particular village. You pause briefly to listen, not because the information is particularly relevant to your professional duties, but because staying connected to community news is part of maintaining your position as someone whose opinions people respect. Medieval social structures operated on complex networks of mutual obligation and reputation, and your effectiveness as an ale taster depended as much on community trust as on your actual ability to detect contaminated beverages. Plus, harvest festivals meant increased ale consumption, which meant busier workdays and higher stakes for ensuring beverage safety. William's workshop occupies a building that has clearly seen better decades, with timber walls that lean at angles that would make modern structural engineers reach for their liability insurance policies. But the interior is meticulously maintained, with brewing equipment arranged with the kind of careful organisation that suggests someone who takes their craft seriously despite working in a building that appears to be held together primarily by determination and strategic placement of supporting beams. "Thomas!" William calls out with the enthusiasm of someone genuinely pleased to see you, which is always refreshing in a profession where your arrival often generates anxiety. "Perfect timing. Just finished a batch with a new herb blend I've been experimenting with. Nothing dangerous," he adds quickly, noting your slightly raised eyebrow. "Just some fennel and coriander to see if I can achieve better preservation without sacrificing flavour." This is where your job becomes genuinely interesting rather than merely essential. Medieval brewers were constantly innovating within the constraints of available ingredients and preservation techniques, creating variations that reflected both personal creativity and practical necessity. The addition of specific herbs served multiple purposes. Some aided digestion, others helped prevent spoilage, and many simply made the ale taste better in an era when better tasting often meant less likely to induce immediate regret. You approach William's experimental batch with the kind of cautious optimism that years of professional ale tasting have taught you. Innovation in medieval brewing could produce genuinely pleasant surprises, but it could also result in combinations that tasted like someone had confused medicinal herbs with flavouring agents, which unfortunately happened more often than anyone cared to admit. The key was maintaining an open mind while keeping your professional standards intact, a balance that required the kind of diplomatic skills they don't teach in modern management seminars. The first sip reveals that William's experimentation has paid off admirably. The fennel adds a subtle licorice note that complements rather than overwhelms the traditional malt flavours, while the coriander provides a slight citrusy brightness that makes the ale feel almost refreshing. It's the kind of successful innovation that makes you appreciate the creativity and skill that medieval craftspeople brought to their work, even when working with limited resources, and constant pressure to produce consistent results. As you continue your evaluation, you become aware that William is watching your reactions with the intensity of someone whose professional reputation hangs on your approval. Medieval brewing was highly competitive, with successful innovations quickly copied by competitors and failed experiments remembered long enough to damage a brewer's reputation. Your positive assessment of his herb blend could establish William as a leader in local brewing innovation, while a negative review might convince him to stick with traditional recipes for the foreseeable future. The crowd that has gathered to observe your work includes several other local brewers who are clearly hoping to learn something from William's experimental approach. Professional knowledge in medieval crafts was often shared through observation and conversation rather than formal training programs, making your public evaluation sessions important opportunities for the entire brewing community to learn about successful techniques and potential improvements to their own methods. After approving William's innovative ale, with the kind of enthusiasm that suggests he might have stumbled onto something genuinely worthwhile, you continue your rounds to the establishment of Goodwife Eleanor, whose brewing operation represents the other end of the spectrum from William's experimental approach. Eleanor has been producing ale using exactly the same methods for the past 27 years, with the kind of unwavering consistency that makes her customers feel like they are drinking a piece of reliable tradition, rather than simply consuming fermented grain beverages. The walk to Eleanor's workshop takes you through the section of town where the more established merchants have their shops, buildings that show the kind of careful maintenance possible when your business has been profitable for multiple generations. The streets here are slightly wider, probably because people with money have more influence over urban planning decisions, and the general atmosphere suggests the medieval equivalent of a respectable commercial district where people conduct serious business transactions and maintain professional reputations. Eleanor's brewing operation occupies a stone building that radiates the kind of solid permanence medieval people associated with successful businesses. The interior is organised with the precision of someone who has perfected their workflow through decades of repetition, with every piece of equipment positioned exactly where it needs to be for maximum efficiency. The air carries the familiar sense of malted grain and fermentation, but with an underlying note of something that might be lavender, which Eleanor adds not for flavour, but because she believes it helps maintain the spiritual purity of the brewing process. Thomas, Eleanor greets you with the kind of formal politeness that suggests mutual professional respect without unnecessary emotional investment. Today's batch follows the traditional recipe, as always. I trust you'll find everything in order. There's a slight emphasis on the word traditional that might contain a subtle critique of William's experimental approach, because medieval communities were small enough that everyone knew what everyone else was doing, and opinions about proper brewing techniques were often strongly held and freely expressed. You begin your evaluation of Eleanor's ale with the confidence that comes from years of testing her consistently reliable product. This is ale that tastes exactly like ale is supposed to taste, without surprises, innovations, or the kind of creative flourishes that might appeal to adventurous drinkers, but could also alienate customers who simply want their daily beverage to be safe, familiar, and available when needed. There's something deeply comforting about this level of consistency, especially in an era when most aspects of daily life involved significant unpredictability. The testing process reveals exactly what you expected: well-crafted traditional ale that meets all safety standards while providing the kind of straightforward satisfaction that has kept Eleanor's customers loyal for decades. It's the medieval equivalent of a reliable brand that people trust enough to purchase without extensive research or comparison shopping, which in an economy where bad purchasing decisions could have serious consequences, represented genuine value. As you conduct your evaluation, you reflect on the peculiar requirements of your profession. Most medieval jobs involved producing tangible goods or providing clearly defined services, but ale tasting required a combination of technical knowledge, sensory sensitivity, and social responsibility that made it unlike almost any other occupation. You needed to understand fermentation chemistry without the benefit of modern scientific knowledge, detect contamination using only your senses, and make decisions that affected community health while operating under social pressure from both brewers and consumers. The medieval ale industry operated within a complex web of regulations, traditions, and economic pressures that would challenge modern business management specialists. Local authorities set quality standards and pricing guidelines. Religious institutions influenced brewing schedules around feast days and fasting periods, and seasonal variations in grain availability required constant adjustments to recipes and production timing. Brewers needed to balance profitability with community service, innovation with tradition, and individual creativity with collective responsibility for public health. Your approval of Eleanor's batch generates the kind of satisfied nods from observers that suggest community approval of both your decision and Eleanor's continued adherence to established brewing standards. Medieval communities valued consistency and reliability, especially in essential services like ale production, and Eleanor's unwavering commitment to traditional methods represented the kind of stability that people could depend on regardless of other uncertainties in their lives. The morning's work is progressing with the kind of smooth efficiency that makes you grateful for your chosen profession, despite its occasional hazards and constant responsibility for other people's well-being. Each successful evaluation represents not just personal professional satisfaction, but a small contribution to the complex network of trust and mutual dependence that kept medieval communities functioning despite the numerous challenges they faced on a daily basis. Historians still debate whether medieval ale tasters received formal training or developed their expertise through apprenticeship and experience, but what's clear is that the position required a unique combination of technical skill, social awareness, and personal courage that made it both essential and demanding. Your willingness to literally risk your health by tasting potentially contaminated beverages made you a crucial figure in community safety, while your professional judgment influenced local economics and individual livelihoods in ways that extended far beyond simple beverage evaluation. Your next stop takes you to the most unusual brewing establishment in town. Operated by Brother Benedict, a monk who had somehow convinced his abbey to let him pursue brewing as a form of spiritual service to the community. The theological justification for this arrangement remained somewhat murky, but nobody questioned it too closely because Brother Benedict produced consistently excellent ale and maintained the kind of scholarly approach to brewing that resulted in meticulous record-keeping and innovative problem-solving techniques that would impress modern quality control specialists. The walk to the monastery's brewing operation leads you through the town's agricultural district, where small gardens and livestock pens create a patchwork of productive activity that feeds the local population. You pass Mrs. Gertrude's herb garden, where she cultivates the medicinal plants that serve as the community's primary healthcare system, assuming you don't count prayer and hoping for the best, which many people did with varying degrees of success. The morning air carries the sense of growing things mixed with the less pleasant but equally familiar aromas of farm animals and the organic fertilizer that keeps medieval agriculture functioning. Brother Benedict greets you at the monastery gate with the kind of serene enthusiasm that suggests he genuinely enjoys his unusual combination of religious devotion and beverage production. "Thomas, my friend, perfect timing as always. I've been experimenting with a technique I discovered in some manuscripts from the continent, a method for achieving better clarity through extended settling time. The theological implications are fascinating, actually, involving patience as a spiritual virtue and the divine nature of transformation processes." You nod politely while mentally preparing yourself for another one of Benedict's enthusiastic lectures about the spiritual dimensions of fermentation chemistry. The monk had an impressive ability to find religious significance in every aspect of brewing, from the miraculous transformation of grain into alcohol to the communal nature of sharing beverages as an expression of Christian fellowship. His theological interpretations were occasionally creative enough to make other clergy members raise eyebrows, but his ale was good enough that most theological objections remained diplomatically unspoken. The monastery's brewing facility represents the pinnacle of medieval industrial organization, with equipment arranged according to principles of both practical efficiency and spiritual symbolism. Every piece of apparatus had been blessed and assigned a place in the cosmic order of divine creation, which struck you as slightly excessive but seemed to work well for maintaining quality control. The walls were decorated with illuminated manuscripts that depicted various saints engaged in activities that could be interpreted as brewing-related if you approached the subject with sufficient theological creativity. Brother Benedict's latest batch demonstrates the kind of technical sophistication that comes from combining traditional brewing knowledge with scholarly research methods. The extended settling time has indeed produced exceptional clarity, while careful attention to fermentation timing has resulted in a flavour profile that balances complexity with accessibility. It's the kind of ale that makes you appreciate the intellectual resources that monasteries brought to practical crafts, even when those resources were applied in ways that seem slightly unconventional. As you conduct your evaluation, Benedict provides a running commentary on the spiritual significance of each stage of the brewing process, complete with references to various saints who had allegedly performed brewing-related miracles. His enthusiasm is genuinely infectious, even when his theological interpretations stretch credibility to its absolute limits. The monk's approach to brewing as a form of prayer in action had produced results that were difficult to argue with, regardless of whether you accepted his interpretation of fermentation as a metaphor for spiritual transformation. The monastery's ale operation served multiple functions within the community beyond simply producing beverages. The monks provided brewing education to local craftspeople, maintained detailed records that helped track seasonal variations in grain quality, and offered their facility as a backup production site during emergencies. This kind of institutional support helped stabilise the local ale supply, while creating networks of professional cooperation that strengthened the entire brewing industry. Medieval monasteries played crucial roles in preserving and developing technological knowledge, including brewing techniques that had been refined through centuries of experimentation and documentation. The combination of literacy, institutional continuity, and religious dedication to excellence made monasteries important centres of innovation, even in apparently secular crafts like beverage production. Brother Benedict's scholarly approach to brewing represented this tradition at its most effective, combining theoretical knowledge with practical experimentation in ways that benefited the entire community. Your approval of Benedict's latest batch generates the kind of satisfied commentary that suggests the monk has successfully balanced innovation with reliability, a combination that made his brewing operation valuable for both its immediate products and its long-term contribution to local brewing knowledge. The monastery's commitment to maintaining high standards, while experimenting with new techniques, created a model of professional development that other brewers could observe and adapt to their own operations. After completing your evaluation at the monastery, you make your way toward the final stop of your morning rounds, the establishment operated by Master Geoffrey, whose brewing business had achieved the kind of reputation that attracted customers from neighbouring towns and occasional visits from minor nobility who appreciated quality beverages. Geoffrey's operation represented what medieval people considered the pinnacle of commercial brewing success, with a customer base diverse enough to provide economic stability and a reputation solid enough to weather occasional crop failures or supply disruptions. The walk to Geoffrey's establishment takes you through the town's commercial heart, where the morning market is reaching its peak activity level. Vendors call out descriptions of their wares with the kind of enthusiastic salesmanship that suggests medieval marketing was just as competitive as modern retail, just with fewer regulations about truth in advertising. You pass the stall of Harold the cheese merchant, whose products were legendary for their ability to remain edible for impressive periods of time, possibly because they had started out barely edible, and could only improve with age. Geoffrey's brewing facility occupies a complex of buildings that demonstrate what successful medieval businesses could achieve with sufficient time and capital investment. The main production area features equipment that represents the cutting edge of brewing technology, while storage facilities provide the kind of inventory management that allowed for consistent supply, regardless of seasonal variations. The overall impression suggests a business operation sophisticated enough to compete in regional markets while maintaining the local community connections that provided its foundation customer base. Master Geoffrey greets you with the confident professionalism of someone whose reputation has been built through decades of consistent quality and reliable service. Thomas, welcome. Today's evaluation should be particularly interesting. I've been working with grain from that new supplier near the cathedral, and I think you'll find the results quite satisfactory. The flavour profile shows some interesting variations from our usual blend, but nothing that compromises quality or safety standards. You approach Geoffrey's latest batch with the heightened attention that comes from evaluating the work of someone whose brewing skills are widely recognised as representing local best practices. This is ale that other brewers study to understand what excellence looks like in practical application, and your evaluation will be observed by members of the brewing community who want to learn from Geoffrey's techniques while monitoring his continued adherence to the standards that made his reputation. The first sip confirms Geoffrey's assessment of his latest batch. The new grain supplier has indeed provided ingredients with slightly different characteristics, resulting in ale with more pronounced nutty undertones and a finish that lingers just long enough to be interesting without becoming overwhelming. It's the kind of subtle variation that demonstrates mastery of brewing techniques, showing how skilled craftspeople could adapt to changing ingredients while maintaining consistent quality standards. As you continue your evaluation, you notice that Jeffrey's brewing facility operates with the kind of systematic organisation that modern business consultants would recognise as representing sophisticated process management. Every aspect of production follows carefully developed procedures, with quality control measures integrated into each stage of the brewing process. The facility employs several assistants who had clearly received extensive training in Jeffrey's methods, creating a production system that could maintain consistency even when the master brewer was unavailable. Medieval craft guilds developed elaborate systems for training apprentices and maintaining professional standards, but brewing operations like Jeffrey's often exceeded guild requirements through internal training programs that reflected individual masters' commitment to excellence. The investment in human resources demonstrated by Jeffrey's employee training program represented the kind of long-term thinking that separated successful businesses from those that struggled to maintain consistency and quality over time. Your approval of Jeffrey's batch generates the kind of respectful acknowledgement from observers that suggests continued recognition of both your professional judgment and Jeffrey's brewing excellence. The evaluation represents not just individual business success, but community validation of the standards that made local brewing industry competitive with regional alternatives while serving local needs effectively. The morning's work has taken you through a complete survey of the town's brewing industry, from traditional methods to experimental techniques, from monastic theological brewing to commercial excellence. Each evaluation represented a small but crucial contribution to community safety and economic stability, while your professional reputation provided the foundation for the trust that made the entire system of ale quality control function effectively. Medieval communities depended on exactly these kinds of professional relationships and mutual responsibilities to maintain the complex networks of production and distribution that kept daily life functioning, despite numerous potential disruptions and challenges. With your morning rounds complete, you make your way back toward the town centre, where the weekly market has reached its full bustling intensity. The successful completion of your brewing evaluations means that the local ale supply has been officially certified as safe for consumption, which will allow tavern keepers and individual customers to make their purchases with confidence. Your professional approval carries legal weight in addition to its practical importance. Taverns caught serving unapproved ale could face significant fines, and in cases where contaminated beverages caused illness, the consequences could extend to criminal charges against both brewers and vendors. The market square presents the kind of organised chaos that medieval people had perfected through centuries of practice. Vendors arrange their goods with the strategic precision of experienced salespeople, placing the most attractive items at eye level, while discreetly positioning less appealing but equally essential products where practical customers would eventually discover them. The air carries a complex mixture of scents that would probably overwhelm modern sensibilities, but which you navigate with the practiced ease of someone who has learned to distinguish between normal medieval aromas and signs of actual problems requiring attention. Your arrival in the market generates the kind of subtle acknowledgement that suggests your professional status is recognised and respected. Tavern keepers nod in your direction with expressions that combine gratitude for your morning's work with the relief that comes from knowing their beverage supplies have passed official inspection. Regular customers who depend on daily ale consumption for both nutrition and hydration offer the kind of casual greetings that indicate appreciation for your role in maintaining their access to safe beverages, even if they don't fully understand the technical aspects of your evaluation process. The first tavern on your afternoon schedule is the Prancing Pony, operated by Master Robert, whose establishment serves as the town's primary gathering place for travellers, merchants and locals who prefer to conduct their socialising in a more formal setting than their own homes. The tavern occupies a building that has clearly been expanded multiple times as the business grew, resulting in a labyrinthine interior with rooms and alcoves that provide varying degrees of privacy for different types of conversations and activities. Master Robert greets you with the kind of professional courtesy that reflects mutual recognition of each other's expertise and importance to community well-being. Thomas, excellent timing as always. I've just received deliveries from all the brewers you've approved this morning, so we're fully stocked with certified ale for what looks like a busy afternoon. The grain merchants from the next valley arrived last night, and they're planning to conduct business here through the weekend. You settle into the evaluation process that determines not just the quality of individual ales, but how they complement each other when served from the same establishment. Tavern keeping required understanding the preferences of different customer groups, managing inventory to ensure consistent supply, and maintaining the kind of atmosphere that encouraged regular patronage while discouraging the kinds of behaviour that could damage a business's reputation or result in intervention by local authorities. The Prancing Pony's ale selection demonstrates Master Robert's skill at matching beverages to customer expectations. Geoffrey's premium ale serves the merchants and minor nobility who could afford higher prices and appreciated superior quality. Eleanor's traditional ale satisfies local regulars who valued consistency and familiarity. William's experimental batch attracts customers interested in trying something different without taking major risks. The variety provides options for different economic levels and taste preferences, while ensuring that every customer receives beverages that have passed your professional evaluation. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele beginning to arrive. The grain merchants mentioned by Master Robert represent exactly the kind of customers who made tavern keeping profitable. Travellers with ready money who needed food, beverages, and accommodation while conducting business away from home. These commercial visitors brought news from other regions, created demand for premium services, and generally contributed to the local economy in ways that extended far beyond their immediate purchases. Medieval taverns served multiple functions that modern establishments would divide among several different types of businesses. They provided accommodation for travellers, meeting spaces for business negotiations, entertainment venues for community gatherings, and informal communication centres where information circulated throughout regional networks. Tavern keepers needed skills in hospitality management, crowd control, credit evaluation, and diplomatic mediation, making their profession considerably more complex than simple beverage service. Your evaluation confirms that the Prancing Pony maintains the standards that have made it a regional destination for discerning customers. The ale service meets all safety requirements while providing the variety and quality that supported the tavern's reputation for excellence. Master Robert's careful selection and presentation of beverages demonstrated the kind of professional competence that made his establishment successful in competitive markets while serving local community needs effectively. Your next stop takes you to the Crooked Crown, a smaller tavern that caters primarily to local customers and represents the kind of neighbourhood gathering place that served as the social centre for working-class community life. The establishment operates in a building that shows its age, but maintains the kind of comfortable familiarity that regular customers valued more highly than architectural elegance or modern amenities. The interior decoration consists mainly of items that had accumulated over years of operation, creating an atmosphere that felt lived in rather than designed. Goodwife Martha, who operates the Crooked Crown with her husband and 2 adult sons, greets you with the kind of warm professionalism that suggests genuine appreciation for your role in keeping her business supplied with approved beverages. Thomas, welcome. We're serving Eleanor's traditional and Margot's latest batch today. Nothing fancy, but solid and reliable, just like our customers prefer. Though I did notice young Peter from the blacksmith shop eyeing William's experimental ale earlier. Might be worth keeping a batch on hand for customers who want to try something different. The Crooked Crown's approach to ale service reflects the economic realities and social preferences of its primary customer base. Working people needed beverages that provided reliable nutrition and mild intoxication at affordable prices, without the premium costs associated with experimental techniques or luxury ingredients. The tavern's success depended on understanding these priorities while maintaining the quality standards that kept customers healthy and satisfied with their purchases. You begin your evaluation of the tavern's current ale selection, noting how Martha has chosen beverages that complement each other while serving different customer needs and preferences. The traditional ales provide the familiar flavours and reliable effects that regular customers expected, while small quantities of more innovative options allowed adventurous patrons to experiment without committing to large purchases. This kind of inventory management required understanding both individual customer preferences and broader community attitudes toward innovation and tradition. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the early afternoon clientele that represents the Crooked Crown's core customer base. Local craftspeople take breaks from their morning's work to socialise and discuss community news. Farmers who have completed their market transactions relax before beginning afternoon tasks. Housewives coordinate evening meal preparations while catching up on neighbourhood gossip. The tavern serves as an informal community centre where social relationships were maintained and practical information was exchanged. Medieval working-class social life centred around institutions like neighbourhood taverns that provided gathering spaces for people whose homes were often too small or too occupied with extended family members to accommodate social entertaining. The tavern environment allowed for interactions across craft and occupational boundaries, creating networks of mutual support and information sharing that helped community members navigate economic challenges and social changes. Martha's skill at managing these social dynamics while maintaining order and profitability made the Crooked Crown an essential community institution. Your evaluation confirms that Martha's beverage selection meets both safety standards and customer expectations. The ales are properly maintained and served at appropriate temperatures, while the variety provides enough options to satisfy different preferences without creating inventory management problems. The tavern's commitment to serving quality beverages at reasonable prices demonstrated the kind of responsible business practices that made neighbourhood establishments valuable community resources. The afternoon's work continues with a visit to the Swan's Rest, a tavern that occupies the middle ground between the Prancing Pony's upscale atmosphere and the Crooked Crown's neighbourhood informality. This establishment attracts customers from various economic levels and social backgrounds, requiring a more complex approach to beverage selection and service that could satisfy diverse expectations without alienating any particular customer group. Master Thomas the Younger, no relation to you despite the shared name, which creates occasional confusion that both of you have learned to navigate with practiced explanations, operates the Swan's Rest with the kind of diplomatic skill that successful tavern keeping requires when serving economically and socially diverse clienteles. His approach to ale selection demonstrates sophisticated understanding of customer psychology and market dynamics, offering enough variety to appeal to different preferences while maintaining the consistency that builds customer loyalty. Thomas, the ale taster Thomas, not the tavern keeper Thomas, he says, with the kind of practiced humour that suggests this clarification has become routine. Perfect timing for our afternoon evaluation. I've arranged today's selection to accommodate the wool merchants who arrived yesterday, the local customers who prefer their usual choices, and a few adventurous souls who keep asking about new brewing techniques. Should be interesting to see how the different ales work together in actual service rather than individual evaluation. This observation reflects the sophisticated understanding that experienced tavern keepers developed about the social dynamics of beverage consumption. Individual ales might meet all technical quality standards, while creating unexpected problems when served simultaneously to diverse customer groups with different expectations and social relationships. Your evaluation needed to consider not just the safety and quality of individual beverages, but how they functioned as part of a complete service offering that supported the tavern's business objectives while maintaining community harmony. Your evaluation of the Swan's Rest reveals the kind of thoughtful curation that separates competent tavern keeping from genuine hospitality expertise. Master Thomas has arranged his ale selection to create what modern marketing professionals might call a customer journey, guiding patrons from familiar choices toward more adventurous options without creating the kind of decision paralysis that could frustrate customers or slow service during busy periods. The layout encourages exploration while respecting individual preferences, a balance that requires understanding both beverage characteristics and human psychology. The tavern's afternoon clientele demonstrates the success of this approach. You observe wool merchants sampling Jeffrey's premium ale while discussing regional price variations with the kind of focused intensity that suggests significant money is changing hands. Local customers enjoy Eleanor's traditional brew while maintaining the comfortable conversations that indicate they consider the Swan's Rest an extension of their social lives. A small group of younger patrons shares a pitcher of William's experimental ale, their animated discussion suggesting either genuine enthusiasm for innovative brewing or the kind of spirited debate that emerges when people with strong opinions encounter something unexpected. As you conduct your evaluation, Master Thomas provides commentary that reveals his sophisticated understanding of customer behaviour and market dynamics. The wool merchants appreciate having premium options that signal their success to other patrons, but they also want familiar flavours that don't distract from business negotiations. Local customers value consistency, but they enjoy having premium ales available for special occasions or when they want to impress visitors. The experimental ales attract younger customers who might otherwise visit taverns in neighbouring towns, expanding our customer base while adding energy to the atmosphere. This kind of strategic thinking about customer segments and their different needs represents the level of business sophistication that successful medieval enterprises achieved despite operating without modern market research techniques or customer analytics. Master Thomas had developed his understanding through years of observation, experimentation, and adaptation, creating systems that serve diverse customer groups effectively while maintaining profitability and community standing. Your professional assessment confirms that the Swan's Rest maintains excellent standards across its entire ale selection, with proper storage and service procedures that preserve beverage quality while maximising customer satisfaction. The tavern's commitment to offering variety without compromising safety or consistency demonstrates the kind of responsible innovation that made medieval businesses successful in competitive environments while serving broader community interests. The evaluation process also reveals some of the subtler aspects of your professional responsibilities. Beyond ensuring beverage safety and quality, your approval of tavern ale selections influences customer confidence, supports business reputation, and contributes to the overall atmosphere that makes community gathering places successful. Medieval social life depended on institutions like taverns that provided neutral spaces for interaction across economic and social boundaries, and your role in maintaining beverage standards helped ensure these spaces remained accessible and welcoming to diverse populations. Medieval tavern culture operated within complex networks of social obligation, economic opportunity, and community regulation that would challenge modern hospitality managers. Tavern keepers needed to balance profit maximization with social responsibility, individual customer satisfaction with group dynamics, and local traditions with innovation and change. Success required diplomatic skills, business acumen, and genuine understanding of community needs and preferences that went far beyond simple beverage service. Your afternoon continues with a visit to the Golden Sheaf, a tavern that specializes in serving the agricultural community and represents a different approach to hospitality that reflects the seasonal rhythms and economic patterns of farming life. The establishment's customer base fluctuates dramatically based on agricultural cycles, requiring flexible business strategies and deep understanding of rural economic patterns that urban taverns could ignore. Master Edmund, not to be confused with Edmund the Alewife, because medieval names apparently came from a very limited selection and everyone just learned to live with the confusion, operates the Golden Sheaf with the kind of practical efficiency that farming communities appreciated. The interior decoration consists mainly of agricultural tools and symbols that create an atmosphere of rural authenticity, while the service approach emphasizes hearty portions, reasonable prices, and the kind of straightforward hospitality that tired farmers valued after long days of physical labour. Thomas, Master Edmund, greets you with the kind of direct friendliness that characterized rural social relationships. Glad you're here for the afternoon evaluation. We're expecting the harvest crews to start arriving next week, so I want to make sure our ale selection can handle the increased demand without compromising quality. Been stocking extra quantities of the traditional ales that work well for large groups, plus keeping some of the premium options available for the crew leaders and landowners who supervise the operations. This Golden Sheaf's approach to ale selection reflects the unique challenges and opportunities of serving agricultural communities during harvest season. Large crews of seasonal workers created demand for substantial quantities of affordable, nutritious beverages that could provide energy and refreshment during physically demanding work periods. At the same time, the presence of landowners, farm supervisors, and successful farmers created opportunities for premium sales that helped taverns achieve the profit margins necessary to survive during slower agricultural periods. Your evaluation of the Golden Sheaf's current stock reveals careful planning for the upcoming harvest season. Master Edmund has arranged for adequate supplies of reliable traditional ales that could satisfy large groups without straining his storage capacity or creating inventory management problems. The selection emphasizes beverages with higher nutritional content and moderate alcohol levels that provided sustenance and refreshment without compromising the safety and productivity of agricultural workers who would return to physically demanding tasks after their tavern visits. As you conduct your assessment, you notice preparations throughout the tavern that demonstrate Master Edmund's experience with seasonal customer fluctuations. Additional seating has been arranged to accommodate larger groups, while storage areas show evidence of expanded inventory management systems designed to handle increased volume without compromising beverage quality. The preparation suggests the kind of systematic approach to seasonal business variations that separated successful agricultural taverns from those that struggled to adapt to dramatic changes in customer demand and expectations. Medieval agricultural cycles created economic patterns that affected entire communities, not just individual farmers and landowners. Harvest seasons brought together large groups of workers from different regions, creating temporary communities with their own social dynamics and economic needs. Taverns that served these seasonal populations needed to balance the profit opportunities of high-volume periods with the social responsibilities of managing diverse groups of workers who might have different expectations, social backgrounds, and relationships with alcohol consumption. Your evaluation confirms that the Golden Sheaf maintains appropriate standards for both everyday service and the expanded operations that harvest season would require. Master Edmund's ale selection provides adequate variety to satisfy different customer segments, while emphasizing the reliability and consistency that agricultural communities valued. The tavern's commitment to serving substantial quantities of quality beverages at reasonable prices demonstrated understanding of rural economic realities and social priorities. The afternoon evaluation process also provides opportunities to observe the broader patterns of community life that connected rural and urban economies. Farmers visiting town for market days brought news from agricultural districts, while urban craftspeople and merchants gathered information about crop conditions and seasonal labour needs. Taverns like the Golden Sheaf served as informal communication centres where these different economic sectors exchanged information that helped coordinate regional economic activity. As your evaluation continues, you reflect on the complex web of relationships and responsibilities that connected individual businesses to broader community welfare. Your professional approval of tavern ale selections contributed to public health and safety, while supporting local economies and social institutions. Medieval communities achieved stability and prosperity through exactly these kinds of interconnected professional relationships and mutual responsibilities that created resilient networks of production, distribution, and social organisation. Your next stop takes you to the Merchant's Rest, a tavern that caters specifically to the commercial travellers who formed the backbone of medieval trade networks. This establishment operates with the kind of sophisticated understanding of regional commerce that made it an essential resource for merchants, craftspeople, and other business travellers who needed reliable services, accurate information, and professional networking opportunities during their journeys. Master William the Elder, distinguished from young William the Brewer through the medieval naming system that made family histories more important than individual creativity, operates the Merchant's Rest with the international perspective that comes from serving customers who travelled throughout regional and continental trade networks. His approach to hospitality reflects understanding of diverse cultural preferences and business practices, while his ale selection demonstrates knowledge of beverages that appealed to sophisticated palates without creating problems for customers who needed to maintain clear judgment for business negotiations. Thomas, welcome to our afternoon evaluation. Master William greets you with the kind of cosmopolitan courtesy that reflects extensive experience with diverse clienteles. Today's selection focuses on ales that complement serious business discussions without overwhelming the palate or compromising mental clarity. We're serving Geoffrey's premium ale for customers who appreciate superior quality, Eleanor's traditional brew for those who prefer familiar flavours, and Brother Benedict's latest batch for patrons interested in the theological and philosophical discussions that his brewing techniques seem to inspire among intellectual travellers. This approach to ale curation demonstrates the sophisticated market segmentation that successful commercial taverns develop to serve diverse customer needs effectively. Business travellers represented high-value customers who could afford premium prices and appreciated superior service, but they also required specialised understanding of the practical and social requirements of commercial activity that could make or break individual business relationships and broader economic networks. Your evaluation of the Merchant's Rest reveals the kind of international sophistication that medieval commercial centres achieved through centuries of trade relationships and cultural exchange. The tavern's ale selection demonstrates Master William's understanding that business travellers needed beverages that facilitated professional relationships without compromising judgment or creating social barriers between people from different cultural backgrounds. The careful balance between quality and moderation reflects the practical requirements of commerce in an era when business relationships depended heavily on personal trust and social compatibility. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in the kinds of negotiations and discussions that drove medieval commerce. Cloth merchants from Flanders compare notes on seasonal demand patterns with local wool producers, their conversation punctuated by careful sips of Geoffrey's premium ale that signals their professional success without suggesting excessive indulgence. A group of spice traders shares Brother Benedict's theologically inspired brew while debating the relative merits of different shipping routes, their discussion displaying the kind of detailed geographical knowledge that made long-distance trade possible before modern transportation and communication systems. The atmosphere of the Merchant's Rest reflects the cosmopolitan character that successful commercial centres developed through regular contact with travellers from distant regions. Conversations flow between languages and dialects, creating a babel of commercial activity that would challenge modern translation services, but which medieval merchants navigated with the linguistic flexibility that international trade required. Your role as ale taster takes on additional complexity in this environment, where beverage approval carries implications for the tavern's reputation among influential customers who could affect its standing throughout regional trade networks. Medieval commerce operated through personal relationships and reputation networks that extended across vast geographical areas, making the quality of hospitality services crucial for regional economic development. Taverns like the Merchant's Rest served as informal business centres where commercial relationships were established, maintained and expanded through social interactions that required appropriate beverages to facilitate trust and communication. Your professional evaluation contributed to the tavern's ability to maintain its position within these networks, while serving the broader community interests that made regional commerce possible. Master William's approach to customer service demonstrates the diplomatic skills that successful medieval hospitality required. He navigates between different cultural expectations and business practices, while maintaining the neutral, professional atmosphere that allowed competitors to interact productively within the same establishment. His ale selection supports these objectives by providing options that satisfy diverse preferences without creating social hierarchies or cultural barriers that could interfere with business relationships. Your evaluation confirms that the Merchant's Rest maintains the standards necessary to serve sophisticated commercial clienteles while contributing to regional economic development. The tavern's commitment to quality beverages and professional service demonstrates understanding of its role within broader networks of trade and communication that connected local communities to continental markets. The success of establishments like the Merchant's Rest helped ensure that medieval commercial centres could compete effectively for the business relationships that drove economic growth and cultural exchange. The afternoon's work continues with a visit to the Scholar's Corner, a unique establishment that caters to the small but influential population of educated individuals who lived and worked within the community. This tavern serves clergy members, scribes, tutors, and the occasional visiting intellectual, creating a specialised market niche that required understanding of academic culture and scholarly social practices that differed significantly from commercial or agricultural customer expectations. Master Agnes, one of the few female tavern keepers in town, whose success in a male-dominated profession demonstrated both these exceptional business skills and the kind of diplomatic expertise that earned respect across gender and social boundaries, operates the Scholar's Corner with the intellectual sophistication that her clientele demanded. The tavern's interior features books, manuscripts, and writing materials that create an atmosphere conducive to scholarly discussion, while the service approach emphasises quiet efficiency that supported concentration and serious conversation rather than boisterous entertainment. Thomas, Master Agnes greets you with the kind of precise courtesy that reflects extensive experience with customers who valued intellectual precision and careful attention to detail. This afternoon's evaluation should be particularly interesting. I've selected ales that complement scholarly work rather than interfering with mental clarity. Brother Benedict's latest theological batch for customers who appreciate the philosophical implications of brewing techniques, Eleanor's traditional ale for those who prefer familiar flavours that don't distract from their studies, and a small quantity of William's experimental brew for patrons interested in discussing innovation and change in various fields of knowledge. The Scholar's Corner represents a fascinating example of how medieval communities supported intellectual life through specialised institutions that served academic and clerical populations. The tavern's ale selection reflects Master Agnes's understanding that scholarly customers needed beverages that enhanced rather than hindered intellectual activity, while providing social lubrication for the kinds of debates and discussions that advanced knowledge and maintained academic relationships. Her approach demonstrates sophisticated market analysis applied to a customer segment that modern businesses might consider too small to justify specialised service. Your evaluation of the tavern's current ale offerings reveals careful attention to the specific requirements of intellectual work. The beverages provide mild relaxation and social facilitation without the heavy effects that could interfere with reading, writing, or complex reasoning. The selection emphasises consistency and predictability, allowing regular customers to make beverage choices based on their planned intellectual activities rather than having to evaluate unfamiliar options that might prove incompatible with their work requirements. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in the kinds of activities that made medieval intellectual life possible despite limited institutional support and resources. A group of monastery scribes discusses copying techniques while sharing Brother Benedict's ale, their conversation revealing the technical expertise required to preserve and transmit written knowledge. Two tutors debate pedagogical methods over Eleanor's traditional brew, their discussion demonstrating the sophisticated educational theories that guided medieval learning. A visiting scholar examines manuscripts while sipping William's experimental ale, his notes suggesting the kind of comparative research that advanced academic understanding across regional boundaries. Medieval intellectual culture operated through informal networks of scholars, clergy, and educated laypeople who maintained academic traditions and advanced knowledge through personal relationships and collaborative activities. Taverns like the Scholar's Corner provided essential meeting spaces for these networks, facilitating the exchange of ideas and information that made intellectual progress possible in an era before formal academic institutions and professional scholarly organisations. Master Agnes's specialised service supported these activities while creating a sustainable business model that served broader community interests. Your professional evaluation confirms that the Scholar's Corner maintains appropriate standards for serving customers whose work required mental clarity and sustained concentration. The tavern's ale selection provides the social and physiological support that intellectual activities required, while avoiding the negative effects that could interfere with scholarly productivity. Master Agnes's understanding of academic culture and intellectual requirements made her establishment an essential resource for the community's educated population. The afternoon evaluation process also provides insights into the complex social relationships that connected different segments of medieval society. Scholarly customers at the Scholar's Corner included clergy members who also participated in religious activities, scribes who worked for merchant and noble clients, and tutors whose students came from various economic backgrounds. The tavern served as a neutral space where these different professional and social relationships could intersect productively, contributing to the intellectual vitality that made medieval communities more than simple agricultural or commercial centres. Your next stop takes you to the Artisan's Hammer, a tavern that serves the community's craftspeople and represents yet another specialised approach to hospitality that reflects the unique culture and economic patterns of medieval craft production. This establishment caters to the blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, potters, and other skilled workers whose expertise created the material foundation for community life while generating the economic activity that supported regional trade and development. Master Harold operates the Artisan's Hammer with understanding of craft culture that comes from his own background as a former carpenter who transitioned into tavern keeping after a workshop accident limited his ability to perform physically demanding manual labour. His approach to customer service reflects intimate knowledge of craftspeople's work rhythms, social relationships, and economic concerns that shape their approach to leisure and socialisation. The tavern's atmosphere celebrates skilled manual work while providing respite from the physical demands and concentrated attention that craft production required. Thomas, perfect timing for our afternoon evaluation. Master Harold greets you with the kind of practical friendliness that characterises relationships among people who understand the value of skilled work and professional competence. Today's ale selection focuses on beverages that provide proper refreshment after demanding physical labour, traditional ales that offer substantial nutrition and satisfying flavours, plus some premium options for craftmasters who wants to celebrate successful projects or mark important occasions. The blacksmiths finished a major commission this week, and the weavers completed their guild's annual quality demonstration, so we're expecting some celebratory drinking alongside the usual after-work socialising. This approach to ale curation demonstrates understanding of the social and economic patterns that shaped craft communities, where individual achievement and collective professional identity created complex networks of competition, cooperation, and mutual support. The tavern's role extended beyond simple beverage service to include celebration of professional accomplishments, coordination of collaborative projects, and maintenance of the social relationships that made craft production possible in an era when most manufacturing depended on personal skill and direct cooperation between individual artisans. Your evaluation of the Artisan's Hammer reveals the sophisticated understanding of craft culture that Master Harold brings to his hospitality business. The tavern's ale selection provides the substantial refreshment that physical labourers required, while acknowledging the professional pride and social complexity that characterize skilled craft communities. The beverages offer enough variety to accommodate different economic levels and personal preferences, while maintaining the reliability and consistency that working people valued in their leisure activities. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in the kinds of discussions and activities that sustained medieval craft production. Blacksmiths compare techniques for achieving specific metal properties while sharing traditional ales that provide the calories and hydration their physically demanding work required. Carpenters examine joint construction methods over premium brews that signal their professional success and mastery of complex skills. Weavers coordinate collaborative projects while enjoying ales that facilitate the social cooperation necessary for large-scale textile production. The atmosphere of the artisan's hammer reflects the pride and expertise that characterized medieval craft communities. Tools and examples of superior workmanship decorate the walls, creating an environment that celebrates skilled manual labor while providing recognition for individual and collective achievements. Conversations flow between technical discussions of craft techniques and broader community topics, demonstrating the integration of professional and social relationships that made craft production both economically viable and culturally significant. Medieval craft guilds developed elaborate systems for maintaining quality standards, training apprentices, and regulating competition that created some of the most sophisticated professional organizations of the pre-modern era. Taverns like the Artisan's Hammer played crucial roles in these systems by providing neutral meeting spaces where guild members could coordinate activities, resolve disputes, and maintain the social relationships that made collective professional organization possible. Master Harold's understanding of these dynamics made his establishment an essential institution within the broader craft economy. Your professional evaluation confirms that the Artisan's Hammer maintains appropriate standards for serving customers whose work demanded physical strength, manual dexterity, and sustained concentration. The tavern's ale selection provides proper nutrition and refreshment while supporting the social activities that maintained craft community cohesion. Master Harold's specialized approach to hospitality demonstrated understanding of professional culture and economic patterns that separated successful craft-focused establishments from those that failed to appreciate the unique requirements of skilled manual workers. The evaluation process also reveals some of the broader social and economic relationships that connected craft production to other sectors of medieval community life. Craft workers at the Artisan's Hammer included blacksmiths who provided tools for agricultural work, carpenters who constructed buildings for merchants and clergy, and weavers whose products served customers throughout regional markets. The tavern facilitated coordination between these different craft specialties, while maintaining connections to the agricultural, commercial, and intellectual communities that provided markets and resources for craft production. Your afternoon continues with a visit to the Maiden's Rest, a tavern that occupies a unique position within the community's hospitality landscape by serving primarily female customers and families with children. This establishment operates under social and legal constraints that reflect medieval attitudes toward gender and respectability, while providing essential services for segments of the population that other taverns might serve less effectively or welcome less enthusiastically. Goodwife Margaret operates the Maiden's Rest with the kind of careful attention to reputation and propriety that women in medieval business required to maintain community standing while achieving economic success. The tavern's atmosphere emphasizes respectability and family-friendly entertainment, creating an environment where women could socialize without compromising their social status or exposing themselves to the kinds of behavior that might occur in establishments with predominantly male clienteles and less structured social expectations. Thomas, welcome to our afternoon evaluation. Goodwife Margaret greets you with the kind of dignified courtesy that reflects her understanding of the delicate social position that female tavern keepers occupied within medieval business culture. Today's ale selection focuses on beverages appropriate for family consumption and social occasions that require maintaining proper decorum. We're serving traditional ales with moderate alcohol content that provide refreshment without encouraging inappropriate behavior, plus some of the premium options for special celebrations and occasions when our customers want to mark important family events. The Maiden's Rest represents a fascinating example of how medieval communities developed specialized institutions to serve populations with particular social requirements and cultural expectations. The tavern's ale selection reflects Goodwife Margaret's understanding that female customers and families needed beverages that facilitated social interaction, while maintaining the respectability and moderation that medieval society expected from establishments serving women and children. Her approach demonstrates sophisticated market analysis applied to customer segments that modern businesses might overlook or serve inadequately. Your evaluation of the tavern's current offerings reveals careful attention to the social and cultural requirements of family-oriented hospitality. The ales provide mild relaxation and social lubrication without the strong effects that could compromise personal safety or social reputation in an environment where women needed to maintain careful control over their behaviour and appearance. The selection emphasises familiar, traditional flavours that appealed to conservative tastes, while avoiding innovations that might generate controversy or concern among customers who valued stability and predictability. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in activities that demonstrate the importance of gender-appropriate social spaces in medieval community life. Groups of women coordinate household management activities while sharing traditional ales, their conversations revealing the complex networks of mutual support that made domestic economy possible. Mothers supervise children while enjoying moderate refreshment, their relaxed attention suggesting the tavern provides respite from domestic responsibilities without compromising their parental duties. Elderly women share family news over premium ales, their discussions maintaining the intergenerational relationships that preserved community knowledge and cultural traditions. Medieval society imposed strict constraints on female social behaviour, while recognising women's essential contributions to community economic and social life. Institutions like the Maiden's Rest provided acceptable venues for women to participate in public social activities while maintaining the respectability that their social position required. Goodwife Margaret's successful navigation of these constraints demonstrated the business skills and cultural understanding necessary for female entrepreneurs to achieve economic independence within restrictive social frameworks. Your professional evaluation confirms that the Maiden's Rest maintains appropriate standards for serving customers who required careful attention to social propriety and cultural expectations. The tavern's ale selection provides adequate variety and quality, while avoiding beverages or service practices that could compromise its reputation or create problems for its vulnerable clientele. Goodwife Margaret's specialised approach to hospitality made her establishment an essential resource for segments of the population that other taverns might serve less effectively. The evaluation process also provides insights into the complex social negotiations that allowed medieval women to participate in economic activities despite legal and cultural restrictions on their autonomy and authority. Female customers at the Maiden's Rest included merchants' wives who contributed to family businesses, widows who managed inherited properties, and working women who earned independent incomes through domestic services or craft production. The tavern provided a neutral space where these different economic roles could be acknowledged and supported, without challenging broader social expectations about appropriate female behaviour. Your next stop takes you to the Pilgrim's Haven, a specialised establishment that serves the religious travellers who pass through the community on their way to regional shrines and pilgrimage destinations. This tavern operates within the intersection of commercial hospitality and religious culture, requiring understanding of both business practices and spiritual expectations that shaped medieval pilgrimage as both religious exercise and economic activity. Brother Francis, a former monk who had received permission to operate a secular business serving religious travellers, runs the Pilgrim's Haven with the kind of spiritual sensitivity that pilgrims appreciated while maintaining the practical efficiency that successful hospitality required. The tavern's atmosphere balances religious respectability with commercial viability, creating an environment that supported pilgrims' spiritual objectives while meeting their practical needs for accommodation, sustenance, and social interaction during their journeys. Thomas, blessed be this afternoon's evaluation, Brother Francis greets you with the kind of religious courtesy that reflects his continued identification with monastic culture despite his transition to secular business activities. Today's ale selection serves pilgrims who seek refreshment that supports rather than distracts from their spiritual purposes. We offer traditional ales that provide necessary sustenance without encouraging excess. Brother Benedict's theologically inspired brews for pilgrims interested in discussing religious questions, and some premium options for pilgrimage leaders and wealthy travellers who can afford superior accommodations while maintaining appropriate spiritual focus. This approach to ale curation demonstrates the complex cultural negotiations required to serve customers whose spiritual objectives needed to be balanced with practical requirements for nutrition, hydration, and social interaction during extended travel. Medieval pilgrimage combined religious devotion with tourism, commerce, and cultural exchange in ways that created unique hospitality challenges and opportunities that required specialized understanding of both religious culture and travel industry practices. Your evaluation of the Pilgrim's Haven reveals the sophisticated understanding of religious culture that Brother Francis brings to his hospitality business. The tavern's ale selection demonstrates careful attention to the spiritual and practical requirements of pilgrimage, providing beverages that supported travellers' physical needs while respecting their religious commitments and cultural expectations. The approach reflects deep knowledge of pilgrimage traditions and the complex motivations that brought people from distant regions to visit local religious sites. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele, engaged in the kinds of activities that characterized medieval pilgrimage culture. Groups of travellers from different regions share traditional ales, while comparing experiences from previous pilgrimage destinations, their conversations revealing the extensive networks of religious sites and travel routes that connected medieval Europe. Individual pilgrims study religious texts over moderate refreshment, their concentrated attention suggesting the serious spiritual purposes that motivated their journeys. Pilgrimage leaders coordinate group activities while enjoying premium ales that acknowledged their responsibilities and social status within the religious travel community. The atmosphere of the Pilgrim's Haven reflects the unique cultural blend that characterized medieval pilgrimage establishments. Religious symbols and pilgrimage memorabilia decorate the walls, creating an environment that supported spiritual reflection while accommodating the practical needs of travelers who required food, shelter, and social interaction during extended journeys. Conversations flow between religious discussions and practical travel advice, demonstrating the integration of spiritual and material concerns that made pilgrimage both religiously meaningful and economically significant. Medieval pilgrimage operated as one of the era's most important industries, generating economic activity that supported communities throughout regional and continental travel networks, while facilitating cultural exchange and religious development. Establishments like the Pilgrim's Haven played crucial roles in these networks by providing specialized services that met pilgrims' unique requirements while contributing to local economies and cultural life. Brother Francis's success demonstrated the business opportunities available to entrepreneurs who understood religious culture and travel industry practices. Your professional evaluation confirms that the Pilgrim's Haven maintains appropriate standards for serving customers whose spiritual commitments required careful attention to religious propriety and cultural sensitivity. The tavern's ale selection provides adequate variety and quality, while avoiding beverages or service practices that could conflict with pilgrims' religious objectives or compromise the establishment's reputation within religious travel networks. Brother Francis's specialized approach to hospitality made his establishment an essential resource for the regional pilgrimage industry. The evaluation process also provides insights into the broader cultural and economic relationships that connected religious travel to other aspects of medieval society. Pilgrims visiting the Pilgrim's Haven included wealthy merchants who combined business travel with religious devotion, clergy members travelling between religious institutions, and ordinary people who saved for years to afford pilgrimage journeys that represented major life events. The tavern facilitated interactions between these different social groups while maintaining the respectful atmosphere that religious travel required. Your afternoon work continues with a visit to the Royal Oak, the community's most prestigious establishment, which serves the local nobility and visiting dignitaries who required the kind of superior accommodations and service that reflected their social status and political importance. This tavern operates at the intersection of hospitality and court culture, requiring understanding of aristocratic expectations and diplomatic protocols that could affect regional political relationships and economic development. Master Geoffrey the Greater distinguished from regular Master Geoffrey through the kind of elaborate naming system that aristocratic culture seemed to require, because apparently having money meant you also needed more syllables in your title. Operates the Royal Oak with the sophisticated understanding of noble culture that comes from previous service in aristocratic households. The establishment's atmosphere reflects the luxury and ceremony that nobility expected, while the service approach demonstrates the diplomatic skills necessary to navigate the complex social hierarchies and political sensitivities that characterized aristocratic society. Thomas, honoured to welcome you for this afternoon's evaluation. Master Geoffrey the Greater greets you with the kind of elaborate courtesy that aristocratic culture had developed to signal respect while maintaining appropriate social boundaries. Today's ale selection serves the most distinguished members of our community and their honoured guests. We offer only the finest premium ales, or ambience, that reflect the quality and refinement appropriate for noble consumption, along with some of Brother Benedict's most theologically sophisticated brews for guests who appreciate intellectual discourse, and carefully selected traditional ales for retainers and servants who require quality beverages without the premium presentation that noble service demands. The Royal Oak represents the pinnacle of medieval hospitality culture, where service standards and attention to detail reached levels that modern luxury hotels would recognise as representing genuine excellence. Your evaluation of the establishment reveals the extraordinary sophistication that aristocratic culture brought to hospitality, creating service systems that combine practical efficiency with ceremonial presentation in ways that satisfied both functional needs and social expectations. The tavern's ale selection demonstrates Master Geoffrey's understanding that serving nobility required not just superior quality, but also the kind of cultural knowledge that could navigate complex social relationships and political sensitivities. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in activities that demonstrate the complexity and importance of aristocratic social life. Local nobles discuss regional political developments while sampling Geoffrey's premium ale, their conversations revealing the intricate networks of family relationships, economic interests, and political obligations that shaped medieval governance. Visiting dignitaries from neighbouring territories participate in diplomatic discussions over Brother Benedict's intellectually inspired brews, their careful attention to protocol suggesting the high stakes involved in regional political relationships. Aristocratic retainers coordinate household management activities while enjoying quality traditional ales, their professional competence contributing to the smooth operation of noble establishments that employed hundreds of people and influenced entire regional economies. The atmosphere of the Royal Oak reflects the ceremonial aspects of aristocratic culture while maintaining the practical efficiency that made noble households function effectively. Elaborate furnishings and decorative objects create an environment that signals wealth and refined taste, while service procedures follow protocols that acknowledged social hierarchies while facilitating the complex business and social activities that aristocratic life required. The integration of luxury presentation with functional service demonstrates the sophisticated understanding of hospitality that separated truly successful establishments from those that merely attempted to serve wealthy customers without understanding aristocratic culture. Medieval aristocratic society operated through networks of personal relationships, family alliances, and political obligations that extended across vast geographical areas and affected the lives of entire populations. Establishments like the Royal Oak played essential roles in these networks by providing neutral venues where political negotiations could occur, social relationships could be maintained, and cultural activities could be conducted with the ceremony and privacy that aristocratic business required. Master Geoffrey's success demonstrated the specialised knowledge and diplomatic skills that serving nobility demanded. Your professional evaluation confirms that the Royal Oak maintains the exceptional standards necessary to serve customers whose social position and political importance required absolute reliability and superior quality. The tavern's ale selection provides the variety and excellence that aristocratic expectations demanded, while demonstrating the cultural sophistication that made the establishment suitable for diplomatic and political activities. Master Geoffrey's approach to hospitality represented the highest level of professional achievement that medieval service industries could attain. The evaluation process also reveals the complex economic relationships that connected aristocratic consumption to broader community prosperity. Noble customers at the Royal Oak included landowners whose agricultural operations employed significant portions of the regional population, political leaders whose decisions affected local trade and development policies, and cultural patrons whose support made possible the artistic and intellectual activities that enhanced community life. The tavern's success contributed to the economic networks that made aristocratic society both politically powerful and culturally influential. Your final afternoon stop takes you to the Crossroads Inn, an establishment that serves the diverse mix of travellers, merchants, craftspeople and local residents who gathered at the intersection where several major roads met near the town's commercial district. This tavern represents the most complex hospitality challenge, requiring service systems that could accommodate dramatically different customer expectations, social backgrounds, and economic resources, while maintaining the neutral atmosphere that made it accessible to everyone who needed food, beverages, and accommodation. Master Robert the Wise, whose nickname reflected his legendary ability to resolve disputes and coordinate activities among diverse groups of customers rather than any particular scholarly achievements, though his practical wisdom certainly qualified as genuine expertise in human nature and social dynamics, operates the Crossroads Inn with the kind of diplomatic genius that made him one of the community's most respected business leaders. His approach to customer service demonstrates understanding of the social psychology and economic patterns that allowed people from different backgrounds to interact productively within the same commercial space. Thomas, perfect timing for our most complex evaluation of the day. Master Robert greets you with the kind of practical friendliness that immediately puts people at ease regardless of their social background or economic status. The afternoon crowd represents our usual fascinating mixture: merchant travellers who need quality service at reasonable prices, local craftspeople finishing their workday, a group of pilgrims who stop for refreshment before continuing their journey, and some of the agricultural folk who came to town for market day and decided to extend their visit. The ale selection needs to satisfy all these different needs while keeping everyone comfortable in the same space, which requires more diplomatic skill than most people realise. Your evaluation of the Crossroads Inn reveals the extraordinary complexity of managing a truly inclusive hospitality establishment in medieval society. Master Robert's ale selection demonstrates sophisticated understanding of how beverages can either facilitate or complicate social interactions between people from different economic levels and cultural backgrounds. The variety provides options that satisfy diverse preferences and budgets while avoiding choices that might create social tensions or reinforce uncomfortable hierarchies among customers who need to coexist peacefully within the same physical space. As you conduct your assessment, you observe the tavern's afternoon clientele engaged in the kinds of careful social negotiations that made inclusive establishments possible. Merchant travellers share tables with local craftspeople, their conversations revealing common interests in trade conditions and regional economic developments that transcended social boundaries. Pilgrims exchange travel advice with agricultural workers, their discussions demonstrating the practical knowledge sharing that made medieval travel and commerce possible. The atmosphere maintains enough formality to respect social differences while encouraging the informal interactions that created business opportunities and cultural exchange. The physical layout of the Crossroads Inn reflects Master Robert's understanding of spatial psychology and social dynamics. Different areas provide varying levels of privacy and formality, allowing customers to choose environments appropriate for their social comfort and business needs, while maintaining visual connection to the broader community space. Seating arrangements facilitate both intimate conversations and larger group discussions, while service patterns ensure that all customers receive appropriate attention regardless of their economic status or social position. Medieval society operated through complex networks of mutual dependence that required institutions where different social groups could interact productively, despite significant differences in wealth, education, and cultural background. The Crossroads Inn represented one of the few spaces where these interactions could occur naturally and beneficially, creating opportunities for economic cooperation, information exchange, and social understanding that strengthened community cohesion while supporting regional development. Your professional evaluation confirms that Master Robert has achieved the remarkable feat of maintaining quality standards that satisfy diverse customer expectations while creating an atmosphere that encourages positive interactions across social boundaries. The tavern's ale selection provides genuine choice without overwhelming customers or creating service complications, while pricing structures accommodate different economic levels without making anyone feel excluded or uncomfortable about their financial limitations. The evaluation process also provides insights into the diplomatic skills that successful inclusive hospitality required. Master Robert's approach to customer service involves constant attention to group dynamics, conflict prevention, and the kind of subtle social management that keeps diverse populations comfortable within shared spaces. His success demonstrates the sophisticated understanding of human psychology and social organization that made medieval communities more cohesive and economically dynamic than simple hierarchical models might suggest. Your afternoon work concludes with a brief return to the town square, where the day's market activities are winding down and people are beginning to transition toward evening routines. The successful completion of your tavern evaluations means that the community's hospitality industry has been officially certified as meeting safety and quality standards, allowing businesses to serve customers with confidence while contributing to the social and economic activities that made medieval town life vibrant and sustainable. The market square at late afternoon presents a different character from the bustling commercial centre you observed earlier in the day. Vendors pack their remaining goods with the kind of practiced efficiency that comes from years of following predictable routines, while customers make final purchases with the relaxed attention of people who have accomplished their necessary business and can afford to browse for interesting opportunities. The atmosphere suggests the satisfaction that comes from productive work completed successfully within supportive community frameworks. As you walk through the quieting market square, you reflect on the complex web of professional relationships and mutual dependencies that your day's work has revealed. Each brewing establishment and tavern represents not just individual business success, but crucial nodes in networks of production, distribution, and social organisation that made medieval community life both economically viable and culturally rich. Your role as ale taster contributes to these networks by maintaining the trust and safety standards that allowed people to participate in economic and social activities with confidence in their basic security and well-being. The late afternoon light casts long shadows across the cobblestones, creating the kind of golden atmosphere that makes even ordinary medieval streets seem touched with subtle magic. People move with the relaxed pace of those who have completed necessary work and can afford to enjoy social interactions and personal pleasures. Children play games that have probably remained unchanged for generations, their laughter adding lightness to the more serious business of adult community life. The overall impression suggests a society that has achieved the difficult balance between individual opportunity and collective responsibility that makes human communities both stable and dynamic. Your professional reputation within this community represents years of consistent performance in a role that required technical expertise, social sensitivity, and personal courage. The trust that brewers, tavern keepers, and ordinary customers place in your judgment reflects recognition of your commitment to community welfare over personal convenience or profit. Medieval society depended on exactly these kinds of professional relationships to maintain the quality standards and ethical practices that made economic cooperation possible despite limited formal regulation and enforcement mechanisms. The diversity of establishments you have evaluated today demonstrates the sophisticated market differentiation that medieval hospitality achieved through understanding of customer psychology and social dynamics. From Brother Benedict's theological brewing experiments to Master Geoffrey the Greater's aristocratic luxury service, each business found sustainable niches by serving specific customer needs while contributing to broader community cohesion and economic development. This kind of specialization required entrepreneurs who understood both their target markets and their roles within larger social and economic systems. As you make your way toward home, you pass groups of people who represent the various customer segments you have served throughout the day. Craftspeople head toward the artisan's hammer for their traditional after-work socializing, while a group of scholars walks toward the scholar's corner for evening discussions. Merchant travelers gather their belongings before heading to the merchant's rest for dinner and accommodation. The natural sorting of people toward establishments that serve their specific needs and preferences demonstrates the success of the specialized hospitality system that is developed within your community. Medieval economic life operated through personal relationships and reputation networks that created both opportunities and constraints for individual business activities. Your position as ale taster represents one example of how professional expertise could create social authority and economic security within these networks, while also demonstrating the responsibilities and risks that came with community trust and recognition. The system worked because people like you chose to prioritize collective welfare over purely personal interests, creating the social capital that made economic cooperation and cultural development possible. Your day's work concludes with the satisfaction that comes from professional duties performed competently within supportive community frameworks. Each successful evaluation contributed to public health and safety, while supporting individual businesses and broader economic networks. The routine nature of most evaluations reflects the stability and reliability that successful medieval communities achieved through careful attention to quality standards and mutual responsibilities, while occasional innovations and experiments demonstrate the creative energy that kept these communities dynamic and adaptable. The evening air carries the familiar sense of wood smoke, cooking food, and the general atmosphere of medieval town life settling into its nighttime routines. People move between home, work, and social spaces with the confidence that comes from living in communities where essential services function reliably, and social institutions provide support for both individual needs and collective activities. Your professional contribution to maintaining this confidence through ale quality assurance represents one small but essential element in the complex systems that made medieval community life both secure and satisfying. Historians still debate the precise mechanisms through which medieval communities achieved the social cohesion and economic cooperation that archaeological evidence and surviving records suggest characterized many regional centres during the period when your hypothetical career would have flourished. What seems clear is that success required individuals who understood their professional responsibilities within broader social contexts and who chose to prioritise community welfare alongside personal achievement, creating the trust networks that made complex economic and cultural activities possible, despite significant material limitations and institutional constraints. As you turn down the familiar street that leads toward your home, the day's professional activities settle into the kind of satisfying mental summary that comes from work completed competently within established routines. The successful evaluation of 12 brewing establishments and 8 taverns represents not just individual business certifications, but a comprehensive assessment of the community's beverage safety and quality systems that will influence economic activity, social interactions, and public health for the entire week ahead. Your professional contribution to community welfare operates through these routine activities that seem mundane, but actually require sophisticated technical knowledge and careful attention to social responsibilities. The evening transition in medieval towns creates a distinctive atmosphere that modern urban dwellers rarely experience. As commercial activities wind down, the focus shifts toward domestic life, social relationships, and the kinds of personal activities that provide meaning and satisfaction beyond economic productivity. The streets become quieter but not empty, as people move between home, social spaces, and community institutions with the relaxed pace of those who have fulfilled their daily obligations and can enjoy the rewards of living in stable, supportive communities. Your own home, when you finally reach it, represents the modest prosperity that skilled professional work could provide within medieval economic systems. The building shows the kind of careful maintenance and gradual improvement that reflects steady income and pride in domestic environment, while remaining appropriately scaled for someone whose social position derives from professional expertise rather than inherited wealth or political authority. The interior combines functional efficiency with personal comfort, creating a private space that supports both rest and the kinds of activities that make individual life satisfying within community frameworks. The evening meal that awaits you has been prepared according to the seasonal rhythms and local ingredients that shaped medieval domestic life. Your household, whether it includes family members, servants, or simply yourself, operates according to the practical routines and social relationships that made domestic economy function effectively within broader community systems. The food reflects both personal preferences and the agricultural cycles that connected urban communities to rural production networks, while the domestic atmosphere provides respite from professional responsibilities and public social activities. As you settle into the evening routine that marks the transition from professional work to personal life, you become aware of the subtle sounds and activities that characterize medieval towns after the day's commercial activities have concluded. Neighbours pursue evening tasks and social activities that maintain the networks of mutual support and informal cooperation that made community life both secure and interesting. Children play games in the remaining daylight, while adults engage in conversations that blend practical information sharing with social relationship maintenance. The security and comfort that your evening routine provides reflects the success of the professional and social systems that your day's work has helped maintain. Your role as ale taster contributes to community welfare through technical expertise and social responsibility, while the income and respect that this role provides allow you to participate fully in the domestic and social activities that make individual life meaningful within community contexts. Medieval society worked because people like you chose to balance professional competence with community commitment, creating the trust networks that made economic cooperation and cultural development possible. Your evening reflection on the day's activities reveals the complex integration of individual skills, social relationships, and community institutions that characterize successful medieval towns. Each brewing evaluation and tavern assessment represents not just professional duties performed competently, but contributions to the networks of mutual dependence and collective responsibility that made community life both economically viable and socially satisfying. The routine nature of most activities demonstrates the stability that medieval communities achieved through careful attention to quality standards and social obligations. The deepening evening atmosphere brings with it the kind of quiet satisfaction that comes from professional work completed within supportive community frameworks. Your day as an ale taster has contributed to the complex systems that maintain public health, support local businesses, and facilitate the social activities that make medieval town life both secure and dynamic. The technical expertise and social responsibility that your role requires represent one example of how medieval communities created professional positions that served both individual economic needs and collective welfare requirements. As you prepare for sleep, the familiar sounds of evening in a medieval town create a soothing background that reflects the rhythms of community life. The occasional conversation drifts from nearby houses, while the distant sounds of tavern activity suggest that your afternoon evaluations have enabled the social gatherings that help maintain community cohesion and cultural vitality. Dogs settle into their nighttime routines, livestock find comfortable resting places, and the general atmosphere suggests a community that has successfully completed another day's cycle of productive activity and social interaction. Your professional reputation within this community has been built through years of consistent performance in evaluations that required both technical knowledge and personal courage. The trust that brewers, tavern keepers, and ordinary customers place in your judgment reflects recognition of your commitment to community welfare over personal convenience or profit. This kind of professional relationship created the social authority that made medieval economic cooperation possible despite limited formal regulation and enforcement mechanisms, while also providing the personal satisfaction that comes from meaningful work within supportive social frameworks. The diversity of establishments and customers that your work serves demonstrates the sophisticated social and economic differentiation that medieval communities achieved through understanding of human psychology and market dynamics. From Brother Benedict's theological brewing experiments to Master Geoffrey the Greater's aristocratic hospitality services, each business found sustainable niches by serving specific customer needs while contributing to broader community cohesion and regional economic development. This specialization required entrepreneurs who understood both their target markets and their roles within larger social and economic systems. Medieval economic life operated through personal relationships and reputation networks that created both opportunities and constraints for individual business activities, while also providing the social capital that made complex cooperative activities possible. Your position as ale taster represents one example of how professional expertise could create economic security and social authority within these networks, while also demonstrating the responsibilities and risks that came with community trust and recognition. The system succeeded because people chose to prioritize collective welfare alongside personal achievement. As sleep approaches, your reflection on the day's activities reveals the intricate balance between individual skills and community institutions that characterize successful medieval society. Each evaluation contributed to public safety, while supporting individual businesses and broader economic networks, creating the kind of routine professional achievement that made community life both predictable and prosperous. The technical aspects of ale evaluation required years of training and experience, while the social dimensions demanded understanding of the community dynamics and cultural expectations that extended far beyond simple beverage assessment. Your career as an ale taster represents participation in the complex networks of mutual dependence and professional cooperation that made medieval communities more sophisticated and resilient than simple hierarchical models might suggest. The daily routine of brewing and tavern evaluations contributed to public health and economic stability, while providing personal satisfaction and social recognition that made individual life meaningful within community frameworks. The integration of technical expertise with social responsibility created professional roles that served both individual economic needs and collective welfare requirements. The evening's quiet atmosphere provides the perfect conclusion to a day spent maintaining the quality standards and safety systems that allowed medieval communities to achieve remarkable levels of social cohesion and economic cooperation despite significant material limitations and institutional constraints. Your professional contribution to these achievements represents one small but essential element in the complex systems that made medieval town life both secure and satisfying for those fortunate enough to live within well-functioning communities that valued both individual excellence and collective responsibility. The gradual transition towards sleep brings with it awareness of the rhythms and relationships that connect individual activities to broader community life, creating the kind of integrated existence that modern people often struggle to achieve despite their material advantages and institutional resources. Medieval society succeeded through exactly these kinds of professional relationships and social commitments that prioritize community welfare alongside personal achievement, demonstrating the timeless importance of choosing collective responsibility over purely individual interests when creating human communities that serve both individual needs and social welfare effectively. The next morning arrives with the kind of gradual brightening that medieval people experienced before artificial lighting changed humanity's relationship with natural rhythms. You wake to the familiar sounds of a community beginning another day's cycle of productive activities. Roosters announcing the dawn with their customary enthusiasm, neighbours stirring about their morning tasks, and the general atmosphere of people preparing to engage in the work and social activities that maintain both individual livelihoods and collective welfare. The transition from sleep to wakefulness feels natural and unhurried, reflecting the integration of personal rhythms with community schedules that characterise medieval life. Your morning routine begins with the kind of careful attention to personal preparation that your professional role requires. As an ale taster, your appearance and demeanour contribute to the authority and respectability that make your evaluations credible to both producers and consumers. The clothing you select reflects your social position as a skilled professional, without claiming status inappropriate to your actual role within community hierarchies. Your personal grooming demonstrates the self-respect and attention to detail that people expect from someone whose judgment affects their health and economic welfare. The breakfast that begins your day consists of ingredients and preparations that connect your domestic life to the agricultural and commercial networks that supply the community's nutritional needs. The bread reflects the quality of local grain production and the skill of neighbourhood bakers, while other elements demonstrate the trade relationships that bring diverse foods to regional markets. The morning meal provides not just physical sustenance for the day's work, but also connection to the complex systems of production and distribution that make community life possible within medieval economic frameworks. As you prepare to begin another day's professional activities, you reflect on the cyclical nature of work that provides both routine security and ongoing challenges. Each day brings essentially similar tasks, evaluating brewing quality and tavern service standards, but within contexts that vary according to seasonal changes, economic fluctuations, and the constant minor innovations that keep medieval business activities dynamic and responsive to changing conditions. The combination of routine competence with adaptive problem-solving makes your profession both personally satisfying and socially valuable. Your morning preparation also includes mental review of the day's schedule and the particular challenges or opportunities that recent developments might create. The harvest season approaches, which will increase demand for ale while potentially affecting grain quality and availability. Some brewers have been experimenting with new techniques that will require careful evaluation to determine their safety and effectiveness. Several taverns have been expanding their operations to serve growing customer bases, creating new service challenges that your evaluations will need to address. The walk from your home to the first morning appointment takes you through streets that show the signs of another night's successful completion and of community activities. The taverns you evaluated yesterday have served their customers without apparent problems, while the breweries have continued their production cycles according to established schedules and quality standards. The morning atmosphere suggests the kind of stable, productive community life that depends on professional services like yours to maintain safety and reliability in essential activities. Medieval professional life operated through networks of mutual dependence and shared responsibility that created both individual opportunities and collective obligations. Your role as ale taster represents one example of how technical expertise could provide economic security and social authority, while also requiring commitment to community welfare over purely personal interests. The daily routine of quality evaluations contributed to public health and business success, while providing personal satisfaction through meaningful work within supportive social frameworks. Your morning activities begin with a visit to Master Geoffrey's premium brewing operation, where yesterday's evaluation confirmed continued adherence to the quality standards that made his products suitable for the most demanding customers. Today's assessment focuses on a new batch that incorporates subtle modifications to fermentation timing, representing the kind of careful innovation that separated superior craftspeople from those who simply followed traditional methods without understanding the principles that made them effective. Master Geoffrey greets you with the professional courtesy that reflects mutual recognition of expertise and shared commitment to maintaining the quality standards that support both individual business success and broader community welfare. Thomas, perfect timing as always. Yesterday's conversation with the grain merchants revealed some interesting information about seasonal variations in barley's characteristics that might affect fermentation patterns. I've adjusted the timing slightly to compensate for what appears to be higher moisture content in this season's grain supply. Should be an interesting evaluation from both technical and practical perspectives. Your assessment of Geoffrey's latest batch demonstrates the ongoing learning and adaptation that characterize successful medieval craftsmanship. The modifications he has made reflect sophisticated understanding of how environmental variables affect production processes, while his willingness to experiment within established safety parameters shows the kind of professional confidence that comes from years of experience combined with genuine expertise. The resulting ale maintains his established quality standards while adapting to changing ingredient characteristics in ways that preserve consistency for his customers. The evaluation process reveals some of the subtler aspects of professional ale tasting that separate routine safety assessment from genuine technical expertise. Geoffrey's modifications have indeed compensated successfully for the seasonal grain variations, producing ale with flavour characteristics that match his previous batches despite working with different raw materials. This kind of adaptive craftsmanship required understanding of both scientific principles and practical techniques that medieval artisans developed through experience, observation, and informal networks of professional knowledge sharing. As you conduct your assessment, Geoffrey provides commentary that reveals the depth of knowledge that successful medieval craftspeople brought to their work. His observations about grain characteristics, fermentation chemistry, and seasonal variations demonstrate the kind of systematic understanding that modern food scientists would recognize as genuinely sophisticated, despite being developed without formal theoretical frameworks or standardized measurement techniques. The integration of practical experience with analytical thinking made medieval craftsmanship remarkably effective within its material and technological constraints. Your approval of Geoffrey's adapted batch reflects recognition of both his technical competence and his commitment to maintaining quality standards despite changing conditions. The successful evaluation contributes to his reputation for reliability, while validating his approach to innovation that balanced experimentation with safety and consistency. Medieval business success often depended on exactly this kind of adaptive expertise that could respond to changing conditions while maintaining the trust and confidence that sustained customer relationships and community standing. The morning's work continues with visits to other brewing establishments, each presenting its own combination of routine evaluation and specific challenges or innovations that require professional judgment and technical assessment. Young William has been experimenting with different herb combinations that might improve preservation characteristics, while Eleanor maintains her commitment to traditional methods that provide reliable consistency for customers who value predictability over innovation. Brother Benedict continues his theological approach to brewing that somehow manages to produce genuinely superior results despite its unconventional theoretical framework. Each evaluation contributes to the community's overall system of quality assurance, while providing individual brewers with professional validation of their methods and products. The morning routine of brewing assessments demonstrates the integration of technical expertise with social responsibility that made medieval professional life both personally satisfying and collectively beneficial. Your role as ale taster represents one example of how specialized knowledge could create individual economic security while serving broader community interests through maintenance of safety and quality standards. Medieval economic life depended on exactly these kinds of professional relationships and mutual responsibilities to create the trust networks that made complex cooperative activities possible despite limited formal regulation and institutional support. The daily routine of quality evaluations contributed to public health and business stability, while providing the professional recognition and personal satisfaction that made individual careers meaningful within community frameworks. The success of the system reflected the willingness of individuals like you to prioritize collective welfare alongside personal achievement, creating social capital that benefited everyone who participated in community economic and social activities. As the morning's brewing evaluations near completion, you reflect on the cyclical nature of work that provides both routine security and ongoing professional challenges. Each day brings similar tasks performed within constantly changing contexts that require adaptive expertise and careful attention to both technical requirements and social responsibilities. The combination of established competence with responsive problem-solving makes medieval professional life both predictable and dynamic, creating careers that serve individual needs while contributing to community welfare and economic development. The transition from morning brewing evaluations to afternoon tavern assessments takes you through the town centre during its busiest commercial period, when the intersection of various economic activities creates the kind of vibrant community atmosphere that made medieval towns centres of regional culture and economic development. Market vendors display their goods with the practiced efficiency of experienced salespeople, while customers move between stalls with the focused attention of people who understand both quality and ambience value. The general atmosphere suggests a community that has achieved the difficult balance between individual opportunity and collective cooperation that makes human settlements both prosperous and socially satisfying. Your afternoon work begins at the Prancing Pony, where Master Robert has been dealing with the challenges created by an unexpected influx of merchant travellers whose original destination had been disrupted by seasonal flooding that made certain roads temporarily impassable. The situation requires flexible customer service and inventory management that tests the establishment's ability to maintain quality standards while accommodating significantly increased demand from customers with different expectations and requirements than the usual clientele. Thomas, glad you're here for what promises to be an interesting evaluation. Master Robert greets you with the kind of professional composure that experienced hospitality managers develop for handling unexpected challenges. The merchant group that arrived yesterday has nearly doubled our normal customer volume, and they'll probably be staying several extra days while the roads dry out sufficiently for their wagons. I've had to expand our ale selection and modify our service procedures to handle the increased demand while maintaining the quality standards that our regular customers expect. Your evaluation of the Prancing Pony's adapted operations reveals the sophisticated crisis management that successful medieval businesses developed to handle the unpredictable disruptions that regularly affected travel, trade, and community life. Master Robert has arranged for emergency supplies from multiple brewers to ensure adequate inventory, while reorganising his service procedures to accommodate larger crowds without compromising attention to individual customer needs. The modifications demonstrate understanding of both logistical challenges and customer psychology that would impress modern hospitality professionals. The expanded customer base creates interesting social dynamics that require careful management to maintain the establishment's atmosphere, while serving people from different regions with varying cultural expectations and business practices. The original merchant travellers represent sophisticated commercial customers who appreciate quality service and can afford premium prices, while the stranded travellers include people with more limited budgets who need basic accommodations but still expect reasonable service. Master Robert's approach to managing these different groups demonstrates the diplomatic skills that made medieval hospitality more complex and demanding than simple food and beverage service. Your assessment confirms that the Prancing Pony maintains appropriate quality standards despite the operational challenges created by unexpected circumstances. The ale selection provides adequate variety to satisfy different customer segments while ensuring that all beverages meet safety requirements and maintain the establishment's reputation for reliability. Master Robert's crisis management demonstrates the adaptive expertise that separated successful medieval businesses from those that struggled to handle the unpredictable challenges that characterize pre-modern economic life. Medieval commerce operated within transportation and communication systems that made business activities vulnerable to weather, political disruptions, and other unpredictable events that could dramatically affect customer demand and supply availability. Successful establishments like the Prancing Pony developed contingency plans and flexible operations that could respond to changing conditions while maintaining the service standards that sustained customer loyalty and community reputation. The ability to handle crisis situations often determined long-term business survival and success. Your evaluation process also provides opportunities to observe the broader economic relationships that connected local businesses to regional and international trade networks. The stranded merchants represent links in commercial chains that extended across vast geographical areas, bringing goods, information, and cultural influences to communities that might otherwise remain isolated from broader economic and cultural developments. Their temporary presence creates economic opportunities while also demonstrating the interdependence that characterized medieval commercial activity. The afternoon continues with a visit to the Scholars' Corner, where Master Agnes has been hosting a group of travelling academics who arrived for what was supposed to be a brief scholarly consultation, but have extended their stay to take advantage of the intellectual resources and stimulating conversations available within the community's educated population. The situation creates opportunities for enhanced academic discussion, while also challenging the establishment's normal service routines and social atmosphere in ways that require careful management to maintain the scholarly environment that regular customers valued. Thomas, welcome to what has become our impromptu academic conference. Master Agnes greets you with the kind of intellectual enthusiasm that suggests she's genuinely enjoying the challenges and opportunities created by the expanded scholarly community. Our visiting academics have been engaging in fascinating discussions about everything from theological questions to agricultural innovations, and they've specifically requested Brother Benedict's theologically inspired ales to accompany their debates about the spiritual dimensions of various intellectual pursuits. The combination of serious scholarship with appropriate beverages has created exactly the kind of stimulating environment that makes intellectual life rewarding. Your evaluation of the Scholars' Corner's current operations reveals the sophisticated understanding of academic culture that Master Agnes brings to serving intellectual communities. The ale selection has been carefully chosen to complement rather than interfere with scholarly activities, while the service approach maintains the quiet efficiency that supports concentration and serious discussion. The presence of visiting scholars has elevated the level of intellectual discourse while creating networking opportunities that benefit both local and travelling academics. The expanded academic community creates interesting dynamics that demonstrate the international character of medieval intellectual life. Scholars from different regions bring varying perspectives on theological, philosophical, and practical questions, while their discussions reveal the sophisticated communication networks that connected academic centres throughout Europe and beyond. The conversations range from highly technical theological debates to practical discussions of agricultural techniques and craft innovations, demonstrating the integration of theoretical knowledge with practical application that characterise medieval scholarship. Your assessment confirms that the Scholars' Corner maintains the standards necessary to serve demanding intellectual clienteles while facilitating the kinds of scholarly interactions that advance knowledge and cultural development. Master Agnes's approach to hosting academic visitors demonstrates understanding of both the practical requirements of scholarly work and the social dynamics that make intellectual collaboration productive and personally satisfying for participants from different backgrounds and institutional affiliations. Medieval intellectual life operated through informal networks of scholars, clergy, and educated laypeople who maintained academic traditions and advanced knowledge despite limited institutional support and resources. Establishments like the Scholars' Corner played crucial roles in these networks by providing meeting spaces and appropriate environments for the discussions and collaborative activities that made intellectual progress possible. The success of such venues contributed to the broader cultural development that made medieval communities centres of learning and innovation. The afternoon's work continues with visits to other taverns, each dealing with its own combination of routine service requirements and special circumstances created by the increased travel and commercial activity that seasonal disruptions had generated throughout the region. The Golden Sheaf prepares for early arrival of harvest crews whose schedules have been affected by weather conditions, while the Merchant's Rest coordinates with stranded commercial travellers who need extended accommodations and business facilities. Each situation requires adaptive management that maintains quality standards, while responding to changing customer needs and market conditions. Your role as ale taster becomes particularly important during periods of disruption and increased activity, when the temptation to compromise quality standards in favour of speed or convenience might create safety problems that could affect entire communities. The evaluations you conduct during challenging periods provide essential validation of safety and quality systems while supporting businesses that need professional recognition to maintain customer confidence and community reputation during stressful operational conditions. Medieval economic life regularly experienced the kinds of disruptions and unexpected challenges that modern businesses might consider exceptional circumstances requiring special crisis management procedures. Successful medieval enterprises developed the adaptive capabilities and flexible operations that allowed them to handle changing conditions as routine aspects of business activity, rather than extraordinary challenges that overwhelm normal operational capabilities. This resilience reflected both the individual entrepreneurial skills and the supportive community networks that helped businesses navigate difficult periods while maintaining service to essential community needs. As the afternoon evaluations continue, you observe the complex interdependencies that connected individual business success to broader community welfare and regional economic stability. Each tavern's ability to handle increased demand and changing circumstances contributes to the community's overall capacity to serve as a reliable centre for commerce, travel, and cultural activity that benefits both local residents and visiting travellers from throughout the regional network of towns and settlements. Your next evaluation takes you to the Crossroads Inn, where Master Robert the Wise faces perhaps the most complex challenge of managing the diverse mix of regular customers and unexpected visitors that the recent travel disruptions have created. The establishment's inclusive approach to hospitality becomes both an advantage and a challenge when dealing with significantly increased customer volume that includes people from different social backgrounds, economic levels, and cultural expectations who must somehow coexist peacefully within the same physical space while receiving appropriate service. Thomas, this has been our most interesting week in years. Master Robert greets you with the kind of philosophical amusement that suggests he's finding genuine satisfaction in the complex social and logistical challenges that the situation has created. We're currently serving our usual mix of local craftspeople and farmers, plus the stranded merchant travellers, a group of pilgrims who decided to wait out the weather, some scholars who seem to be enjoying the intellectual conversations, and a few minor nobles who apparently prefer our atmosphere to the more formal environment at the Royal Oak. Managing all these different groups within the same space requires more diplomatic skill than most people realise. Your evaluation of the Crossroads Inn's current operations reveals the extraordinary social management that inclusive hospitality requires during periods of high demand and diverse clientele. Master Robert has created seating arrangements that allow different customer groups to maintain their preferred levels of social interaction while preventing the kinds of conflicts that might arise from forced proximity between people with different cultural expectations and economic capabilities. The ale selection provides options for various budgets and preferences while maintaining the quality standards that earn respect from all customer segments. The diverse customer base creates fascinating social dynamics that demonstrate both the possibilities and challenges of medieval community life. Local craftspeople share tables with travelling scholars, their conversations revealing common interests in technical innovations and practical problem-solving that transcend social boundaries. Merchants discuss trade conditions with farmers, creating information exchanges that benefit regional economic development. Pilgrims interact with people from various backgrounds, facilitating the kind of cultural exchange that medieval travel made possible despite significant transportation challenges. Your assessment confirms that the Crossroads Inn maintains remarkable success in serving dramatically different customer groups without compromising quality standards or creating social tensions that could disrupt the establishment's welcoming atmosphere. Master Robert's approach to inclusive hospitality demonstrates sophisticated understanding of human psychology and social dynamics that allows people from different backgrounds to interact productively within shared spaces. His success reflects the kind of community leadership that made medieval towns centres of regional cooperation and cultural development. Medieval society achieved remarkable levels of social integration and economic cooperation through institutions that facilitated positive interactions across class, occupational, and cultural boundaries. The Crossroads Inn represents one example of how skilled entrepreneurs could create businesses that serve diverse populations while contributing to community cohesion and regional development. The success of such establishments helped make medieval towns more inclusive and dynamic than simple hierarchical models might suggest. The afternoon's work continues with a visit to the Maiden's Rest, where Goodwife Margaret has been accommodating families whose travel plans were disrupted by the road conditions, creating challenges for an establishment that specialised in serving women and children within the constraints of medieval social expectations about appropriate female behaviour in public spaces. The situation requires careful attention to maintaining the respectful atmosphere that made the tavern suitable for female customers while adapting to increased demand and changing service requirements. Thomas, we've been blessed with the opportunity to serve families who might not otherwise visit our establishment. Goodwife Margaret greets you with the kind of dignified satisfaction that suggests she's finding genuine meaning in the expanded service opportunities that circumstances have created. The mothers appreciate having a place where they can relax with their children without worrying about inappropriate behaviour or uncomfortable social pressures. We've been able to provide the kind of family-friendly environment that makes travel less stressful for everyone involved, which feels like genuine community service rather than simply commercial activity. Your evaluation of the Maiden's Rest reveals the specialised skills that gender-appropriate hospitality required within medieval social frameworks. Goodwife Margaret has managed to accommodate increased demand while maintaining the careful attention to propriety and respectability that made her establishment suitable for female customers who needed to protect their social reputations while participating in public activities. The ale selection emphasises moderate options that facilitate social interaction without compromising the behavioural standards that medieval society expected from respectable women. The expanded customer base at the Maiden's Rest creates opportunities to observe the complex social negotiations that medieval women navigated when participating in economic and social activities outside their domestic spheres. The stranded travellers include merchant wives who normally conducted business alongside their husbands, widows managing family commercial activities, and working women who earned independent incomes through various forms of skilled labour. Their interactions demonstrate the sophisticated networks of mutual support and information sharing that helped women achieve economic security and social recognition despite legal and cultural constraints on their autonomy. Your assessment confirms that the Maiden's Rest maintains the standards necessary to serve female customers while adapting to changing circumstances that test the establishment's ability to preserve its specialised social environment. Goodwife Margaret's approach to expanded hospitality demonstrates understanding of both female social psychology and the broader community interests that made gender-appropriate services essential for inclusive economic development. Her success reflects the entrepreneurial skills and cultural sensitivity that allowed some medieval women to achieve business success within restrictive social frameworks. Medieval women participated in economic activities through complex strategies that balanced legal constraints with practical necessities and personal ambitions, creating informal networks of cooperation and support that made female entrepreneurship possible despite official limitations on women's rights and opportunities. Establishments like the Maiden's Rest played crucial roles in these networks by providing safe spaces where women could conduct business, share information, and maintain social relationships that supported both individual success and collective welfare. The afternoon evaluations continue with visits to other specialised establishments, each facing its own combination of routine service requirements and exceptional challenges created by the increased activity and changing customer demographics that recent events had generated. The Pilgrim's Haven accommodates religious travellers whose schedules have been disrupted by weather conditions, while the Royal Oak maintains its aristocratic service standards despite increased demand from noble customers who prefer to wait out the travel difficulties in comfortable surroundings rather than risk dangerous road conditions. Your role as ale taster becomes particularly important during periods when establishments are operating under stress and handling unfamiliar customer demands that might tempt them to compromise quality standards in favour of speed or convenience. The evaluations you conduct provide essential validation of safety and quality systems while supporting businesses that need professional recognition to maintain customer confidence during challenging operational periods. Medieval economic life depended on exactly these kinds of professional services to maintain the trust networks that made complex commercial activities possible. As the afternoon's evaluations near completion, you reflect on the remarkable adaptability and resilience that medieval communities demonstrated when facing the kinds of unpredictable challenges that regularly disrupted transportation, trade, and social activities. Each business has found ways to serve increased demand while maintaining the specialised approaches that made them successful within their particular market niches, demonstrating the entrepreneurial skills and community cooperation that made medieval towns centres of regional economic and cultural development. The successful management of crisis situations by multiple establishments simultaneously reveals the sophisticated coordination and mutual support that characterised medieval business communities. Tavern keepers share resources and information, brewers adjust production schedules to meet changing demand, and service providers coordinate activities to ensure that the community can handle exceptional circumstances without compromising the quality standards that maintain its reputation as a reliable centre for commerce, travel, and cultural activity. Your professional contribution to this community resilience operates through the routine evaluations that maintain safety and quality standards while providing the professional validation that supports business confidence and customer trust during challenging periods. The daily cycle of assessments creates the foundation for economic cooperation and social cohesion that allows medieval communities to function effectively despite the unpredictable disruptions that characterized pre-modern life. Medieval society succeeded through exactly these kinds of professional relationships and community institutions that prioritize collective welfare alongside individual achievement, creating the social capital that made complex cooperative activities possible despite limited formal regulation and institutional support. Your role as ale taster represents one example of how specialised expertise could contribute to community resilience, while providing individual economic security and professional satisfaction within supportive social frameworks. As evening approaches, the day's work demonstrates the cyclical nature of professional activity that provides both routine security and ongoing challenges that require adaptive expertise and careful attention to both technical requirements and social responsibilities. The combination of established competence with responsive problem-solving makes medieval professional life both predictable and dynamic, creating careers that serve individual needs while contributing to community welfare and regional economic development through periods of both normal operation and exceptional circumstances. The late afternoon light filters through the narrow windows of the artisan's hammer as you conduct your final evaluation of the day, finding Master Harold managing what might be the most complex challenge any establishment has faced during this period of disrupted travel and increased commercial activity. The tavern serves not only its usual community of skilled craftspeople, but also the additional workers who have been hired to repair flood damage on regional roads, plus several travelling artisans whose journeys were interrupted and who have decided to seek temporary employment until conditions improve for continued travel. Thomas, this has been the most educational week in my entire career as a tavern keeper. Master Harold greets you with the kind of practical satisfaction that comes from successfully managing complex logistical challenges while discovering new approaches to customer service and community cooperation. We're currently serving our regular craft community, plus road repair workers who need substantial refreshment after physically demanding labour, travelling artisans who appreciate professional conversations about techniques and innovations, and even a few merchants who prefer our atmosphere to the more commercial environment of other establishments. The conversations about different regional approaches to various crafts have been fascinating for everyone involved. Your evaluation of the artisan's hammer's adapted operations reveals the remarkable community building that can emerge from crisis situations when businesses and customers work together to create positive experiences despite challenging circumstances. The ale selection provides the substantial refreshment that physical labourers require, while accommodating the more sophisticated preferences of travelling craftspeople and visiting merchants. The atmosphere celebrates skilled work while facilitating the kind of professional networking and knowledge sharing that advances craft techniques and business relationships across regional boundaries. The diverse customer base creates extraordinary opportunities for professional development and cultural exchange that might not occur under normal circumstances. Local blacksmiths learn new techniques from travelling metalworkers, while carpenters discuss regional variations in construction methods with road repair specialists. The conversations reveal the sophisticated technical knowledge and innovative approaches that medieval craftspeople developed through informal networks of professional communication and collaborative problem-solving. Your assessment confirms that the artisan's hammer maintains excellent standards while serving as an impromptu centre for professional education and cultural exchange that benefits both local craftspeople and visiting workers. Master Harold's approach to managing diverse customer groups demonstrates understanding of craft culture and professional psychology that creates productive interactions, while maintaining the workshop atmosphere that celebrates skilled manual labour and technical expertise. Medieval craft production advanced through exactly these kinds of informal networks and professional relationships that facilitated knowledge sharing across regional boundaries and occupational specialties. Crisis situations that brought together craftspeople who might not otherwise interact created opportunities for innovation and professional development that strengthened entire industries while building personal relationships that lasted long after immediate circumstances changed. As you complete your evaluation and prepare to conclude the day's professional activities, you reflect on the remarkable demonstration of community resilience and cooperation that the recent challenges have created. Each establishment has not only maintained its essential services, but has also discovered new approaches to hospitality and customer service that strengthen both individual businesses and the broader community's capacity to handle unexpected circumstances, while maintaining its role as a regional centre for commerce, culture and social activities. The late afternoon atmosphere in the tavern reflects the kind of satisfied exhaustion that comes from meaningful work completed successfully within supportive community frameworks. Craftspeople discuss the day's projects while enjoying well-earned refreshment, their conversations revealing both professional pride and appreciation for the social relationships that make skilled work both economically viable and personally satisfying. The general mood suggests a community that has successfully navigated challenging circumstances while discovering new possibilities for cooperation and mutual support. Your own sense of professional satisfaction reflects recognition that your role as ale taster has contributed to the community's ability to maintain safety and quality standards during a period when such standards might easily have been compromised in favour of speed or convenience. The evaluations you have conducted provide the foundation for public confidence in local businesses while supporting the entrepreneurial innovation and adaptive management that have made the community's response to crisis both successful and exemplary. The evening transition begins as you make your way home through streets that show the signs of a community that has not merely survived unexpected challenges, but has used them as opportunities for growth, learning, and strengthened cooperation. The increased activity level has created a more vibrant atmosphere than usual, with people from different regions and backgrounds contributing to conversations and cultural exchanges that enrich local social life while providing economic opportunities that benefit everyone involved in community activities. The market square, which normally would be quieting down at this hour, maintains higher activity levels as stranded travellers and visiting workers continue their shopping and social activities later into the evening than local residents typically might. The extended commercial activity creates opportunities for vendors to earn additional income while providing services that help visitors feel welcome and comfortable despite their unexpected extended stays in the community. Your own reflection on the day's work reveals the complex integration of technical expertise, social responsibility, and community leadership that effective professional roles require within medieval society. Each evaluation you conducted contributed not only to immediate safety and quality assurance, but also to the broader networks of trust and cooperation that allow communities to function effectively during both routine periods and exceptional circumstances that test their resilience and adaptability. The professional satisfaction that concludes your day comes from recognition that specialized knowledge and community commitment can create individual economic security while serving broader social interests that benefit everyone who participates in community economic and cultural activities. Medieval society succeeded through exactly these kinds of professional relationships that balanced individual achievement with collective responsibility, creating the social capital that made complex cooperative activities possible despite limited institutional support and formal regulation. As you approach your home, the familiar domestic atmosphere provides welcome respite from the day's professional responsibilities while also connecting your individual life to the broader community networks that your work helps maintain. The evening meal that awaits reflects both personal preferences and the regional agricultural and commercial systems that supply community nutritional needs, while the domestic routine provides the personal satisfaction and social relationships that make professional achievement meaningful within broader life contexts. The quiet evening activities that conclude your day demonstrate the integration of work and personal life that characterized medieval society, where professional roles were embedded within community relationships and cultural activities, rather than being separated into distinct spheres that might compete with each other for time and attention. Your career as ale taster provides both individual economic security and social recognition, while contributing to the community welfare and regional development in ways that make professional achievement personally satisfying and socially meaningful. Medieval professional life operated through personal relationships and community networks that created both opportunities and obligations for individual achievement within social frameworks that prioritize collective welfare alongside personal success. Your daily routine of quality evaluations represents one example of how technical expertise could provide economic security and social authority, while requiring commitment to community interests that extended far beyond immediate professional duties and personal concerns. The evening's reflection on recent events reveals the remarkable capacity for adaptation and innovation that medieval communities possessed when facing the kinds of unpredictable challenges that regularly disrupted economic activities and social routines. The successful response of local businesses to increased demand and changing customer requirements demonstrates the entrepreneurial skills and cooperative relationships that made medieval towns resilient centers of regional economic and cultural development. Your own contribution to this community resilience operates through the professional relationships and quality standards that create the foundation for economic cooperation and social trust that allow complex activities to function effectively despite limited formal regulation and institutional support. The role of ale taster represents the kind of specialized expertise that medieval society developed to maintain essential services while adapting to changing conditions and emerging opportunities. As the day transitions toward evening rest, the cycle of professional activity concludes with the satisfaction that comes from meaningful work completed competently within supportive community frameworks that value both individual achievement and collective responsibility. Tomorrow will bring another cycle of evaluations and assessments that maintain safety standards while supporting the business innovations and social relationships that make medieval community life both economically viable and culturally rich. The gradual settling into evening routines reflects the natural rhythms of medieval life that integrated work activities with domestic responsibilities and social relationships in ways that created personally satisfying and socially beneficial patterns of daily activity. Your professional role contributes to these patterns while being sustained by the community networks and cultural values that make individual achievement meaningful within broader social contexts that prioritize both personal success and collective welfare. The deepening evening brings with it a sense of completion that extends beyond the simple conclusion of another day's professional activities to encompass recognition of participation in something larger and more enduring than individual achievement or personal satisfaction. Your work as an ale taster connects you to networks of production, distribution, and social organization that have sustained human communities for generations, while also contributing to innovations and adaptations that will influence community development for years to come. The domestic routine that welcomes you home reflects the integration of professional success with personal life that characterized medieval society, where individual careers were embedded within family relationships, neighborhood networks, and cultural traditions that provided both support and meaning for daily activities. The evening meal consists of ingredients that connect your household to regional agricultural systems, while conversations with family members or neighbors integrate work experiences with broader community concerns and personal relationships. As you settle into the comfortable rhythms of evening activities, you become aware of the subtle sounds and atmospheres that characterize a medieval community transitioning from day to night. The taverns you evaluated continue serving their diverse clienteles, their success contributing to the social and economic vitality that makes community life both secure and dynamic. The distant sounds of conversation, music, and general human activity suggest a society that has achieved the difficult balance between individual opportunity and collective responsibility that makes communities both prosperous and culturally rich. Your reflection on the recent period of increased activity and adaptive challenge reveals the remarkable capacity for cooperation and innovation that medieval communities possessed when facing circumstances that might have overwhelmed less resilient social systems. Each business found ways to maintain essential services while adapting to changing conditions, demonstrating the entrepreneurial skills and community commitment that made medieval town centres of regional development and cultural exchange. The professional satisfaction that concludes your day comes from recognition that specialised expertise can provide both individual economic security and meaningful contribution to community welfare when practiced within social frameworks that value both personal achievement and collective responsibility. Medieval society created opportunities for professional development and social recognition that modern people might find both enviable and instructive, despite the material limitations and institutional constraints that characterized pre-modern life. Your career as ale taster represents one example of how medieval communities developed professional roles that served essential functions while providing individual opportunities for economic advancement and social recognition. The technical knowledge and social responsibility that your position required created forms of expertise and authority that contributed to community welfare while supporting personal development and professional satisfaction that made individual lives meaningful within broader social contexts. The evening's quiet activities provide opportunity for the kind of reflection and personal integration that makes professional achievement satisfying within broader life contexts that include family relationships, cultural activities, and spiritual or philosophical concerns that give meaning to daily routines and long-term objectives. Medieval life achieved remarkable integration of work, personal relationships, and cultural activities that created holistic patterns of existence that modern people often struggle to achieve despite their material advantages and institutional resources. Medieval professional life operated through personal relationships and community networks that created both individual opportunities and social obligations, requiring people to balance personal achievement with collective responsibility in ways that strengthened both individual lives and community institutions. Your daily routine of quality evaluations represents participation in social systems that prioritize both individual success and collective welfare, creating the kind of integrated existence that made medieval communities both economically viable and culturally meaningful. As sleep approaches on what has been an exceptionally revealing day in your career as an ale taster, you reflect on the profound interconnectedness that characterises medieval community life, where individual professional competence contributes to collective welfare while community support makes individual achievement both possible and meaningful. The recent period of disruption and adaptation has demonstrated the remarkable resilience and creativity that human communities can display when facing challenges that require both individual expertise and cooperative response. Your bedroom window overlooks streets that now carry the quiet sounds of a community settling into nighttime routines after successfully navigating circumstances that tested every establishment's ability to maintain quality standards while adapting to changing demands and unfamiliar customer requirements. The distant glow from tavern windows suggests continued social activity that builds relationships and facilitates the cultural exchanges that make community life both economically dynamic and personally satisfying for people from various backgrounds and social positions. The technical aspects of your profession, the careful evaluation of brewing quality, the assessment of storage and service conditions, the professional judgment that ensures beverage safety, represent just one dimension of a role that also encompasses social responsibility, community leadership, and participation in the networks of mutual dependence that make medieval economic life both functional and resilient. Each evaluation contributes to public health while supporting individual businesses and broader economic systems that connect local communities to regional and international networks of trade and cultural exchange. Medieval society achieved remarkable levels of social cooperation and economic integration through professional relationships and community institutions that balanced individual opportunity with collective responsibility, creating the kind of social capital that made complex cooperative activities possible despite limited formal regulation and institutional support. Your career represents participation in these systems at their most effective, where specialised knowledge serves both personal advancement and community welfare within frameworks that make individual achievement meaningful and socially beneficial. The day's experiences have revealed the sophisticated understanding of human psychology, market dynamics, and social organisation that successful medieval entrepreneurs developed through practical experience and community engagement. Each tavern keeper demonstrated unique approaches to customer service and crisis management that reflected both individual creativity and deep understanding of the cultural expectations and economic requirements that shaped medieval hospitality and social life. Your own professional development through years of ale evaluation has created expertise that combines technical knowledge with social awareness, enabling you to contribute to community welfare while achieving individual economic security and social recognition. The role requires constant learning and adaptation as brewing techniques evolve, customer expectations change, and economic conditions create new challenges and opportunities for both producers and service providers. The cyclical nature of medieval professional life creates patterns of routine competence and adaptive challenge that make careers both predictable and dynamic, providing the security of established expertise while requiring ongoing learning and professional development. Your daily evaluations represent participation in economic and social systems that have sustained human communities for generations while continuing to evolve in response to changing conditions and emerging opportunities. As consciousness gradually fades towards sleep, the day's activities settle into memory as another example of meaningful work completed competently within supportive community frameworks that value both individual achievement and collective responsibility. Tomorrow will bring another cycle of evaluations and assessments that maintain quality standards while supporting the innovations and relationships that make medieval community life both economically viable and culturally enriching. The gentle transition towards sleep reflects the natural rhythms of medieval life that integrated professional responsibilities with personal relationships and cultural activities in ways that created holistic patterns of existence that modern people often find difficult to achieve despite their material advantages and institutional resources. Your career as ale taster represents participation in social systems that prioritize both individual success and community welfare, creating the kind of meaningful work that made medieval professional life both personally satisfying and socially beneficial. The soft darkness that gradually envelops your medieval world brings with it the profound peace of another day lived fully within the gentle rhythms of community life, where your work as an ale taster has woven itself seamlessly into the larger tapestry of human cooperation and mutual care. The distant sounds of the town settling into night, The last conversations drifting from tavern doorways, the gentle closing of shutters, the soft footsteps of neighbours making their way home. Create a lullaby of belonging and purpose that speaks to something timeless in the human experience of community. Your breathing slows to match the quiet pulse of a world where individual skill and collective welfare dance together in ancient patterns, where the careful evaluation of ale represents not just professional duty, but participation in the sacred trust that connects all human communities across time. The technical knowledge that guides your daily evaluations dissolves into the deeper wisdom of understanding your place within networks of mutual dependence and shared responsibility that make life both meaningful and secure. In this gentle space between waking and dreams, the complexities of brewing chemistry and tavern management fade into simpler truths about human nature and social cooperation, revealing the profound satisfaction that comes from work that serves others while honouring your own need for purpose and recognition. The medieval world that has embraced your expertise offers lessons about integration and balance that transcend historical periods, speaking to eternal human needs for meaningful work, supportive relationships, and participation in something larger than individual concerns. As sleep finally claims you, the day's experiences transform into dreams of golden ale and warm conversations, of professional competence rewarded with community respect, and of individual lives made meaningful through service to collective welfare. The ancient rhythms of medieval community life carry you gently into rest, surrounded by the enduring human capacity for cooperation, creativity, and care that makes all communities in any age places where individual dreams and collective welfare can flourish together in harmony and mutual support.